Okay, it's 8:30. We're all here, so I'll call the meeting of the Grafton Finance Committee to order. We're operating under the governor's executive order pertaining to the open meeting law. We're on Zoom. This meeting is being recorded for broadcast later on the Grafton television, community television station. Because there's so many people on here, when you want to speak, please use the raise your hand function. That way I won't miss you and I'll be able to call on you. We have a pretty packed agenda this morning and I don't want to take up a lot of time, so we're going to jump right in. Justin is here representing the Veterans Services budget. So Justin, the way we've been doing this is we share the budget on the screen and we just have you walk us through it. So I will do that and then I will turn it right over to you and you can talk about the highlights and the lowlights of your budget.
Fantastic. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Justin Souza. I'm the District Director of the Central Mass Veterans Service District, which serves 4 communities: Grafton, Northborough, Westborough, and Shrewsbury. Grafton is the host town, so as we go through this budget, you'll see that there are some budget lines. They are split between the 4 towns, and each town pays a percentage of the budget. Grafton pays 21% of the budget, as well as Westborough. They have a similar population. Shrewsbury pays 42%, and Northborough, being the smallest of the towns, pays 16%. So here it looks like the personnel lines. It's myself and 2 part-time agents. I have a 19-hour-a-week and a 12-hour-a-week part-time agent that are paid out of the personnel line. And then the expenses, I believe, are the actual budget that I have to spend. And in Grafton, they host the operational budget for the district, as well as a couple lines that are specific to Grafton. Does anyone have any particular questions on this?
I'm just going to start, Justin. So sure. We pay 21% of the total 195. How does the town record the rest of the money in terms of balancing the budget? We use it as a Mary or Evan could probably answer this. We use it as a general fund receipt.
That I have no idea. I'm not usually privy to how the town bills the other. So Grafton bills the other 3 communities for the amounts quarterly, I believe. Becca Meekins used to handle that before she left. And I don't know if there has been a mechanism put in place to continue that. I know Cindy Ide in the town manager's office has approached me about helping with that. And we've been kind of on hold, I think, waiting till Evan Broussard gets on board to find out how he wants to do the billing.
Mary, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, the money goes right into the general fund.
So we do account for it. I was hoping that we didn't account for it this particular budget cycle, and we just found, $75,000 with it. You're telling, or $100,000. That's not the case, right?
No.
It was worth a shot. Thank you, Mary. Does anybody have any questions for Justin on his budget and the way this thing is broken out? Does everybody understand how it works? Go ahead, Angelina.
You're muted, Angelina.
Angelina, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
So fiscal year 20 was, can you go back up to that? For the expenses, the actual was 48,000 and this year's budget is 95. Do you know what the deal was with that? The actual versus, did something change or?
I imagine that is because the expense line here shows the Grafton benefits line that is paid out to veterans that are on Chapter 115. As we go a little bit lower, you'll get a better idea of the operating budget versus the benefits line that is paid out. So that number can fluctuate greatly depending on who's eligible and how much they're eligible for each month. Because, for instance, we could have 2 or 3 veterans show up that are eligible for $1,000 a month, and that would be $2,000 or $3,000 additional that the budget would have to cover. So, and that is driven by state law, where the town is required to pay Chapter 115 benefits to eligible veterans.
Oh, I see. Here it is, Angelina.
Yeah.
Here it is right here. The veterans benefits for Grafton was 48,000, and that's the only thing they record here. And then for the entire budget is this line here at 78. So I think that's what the difference is. Why wouldn't they just keep it consistent? Because it kind of throws things off by not having the entire budget in there. Even I understand why it's specific, but does that mean those towns are directly paying the money, even though we're budgeting it here? Because now it doesn't
Nope.
make sense to me.
Every town has their own benefits line. So that does not affect the Grafton budget at all.
Okay.
Every
So this
town
is what
will-
Grafton, so Justin, this 78,000 is what Grafton's talking about for their benefits, but we only spent $43,000 last year.
Correct. And if you looked back a few more years, you would see that we spent probably close to the 78,000, or we spent more than 43,000. It fluctuates greatly as different veterans apply for the benefit. Some are surviving spouses who are a little bit older, and they end up maybe passing, so they come off the benefit. And then you might have an unemployed veteran who's eligible, who comes on for a couple months. And then it can fluctuate greatly depending on the different eligibility and the different benefits amounts that they can qualify for.
Understood. Barry?
How are the veterans holding up during all of this COVID stuff?
Surprisingly well. I've only had 4 veterans apply throughout the district for unemployment benefits. Well, I shouldn't say unemployment benefits. They were on unemployment assistance through the state, and then that, for whatever reason, maybe they ran out of it, or they weren't eligible for it based on their employment category prior to COVID. So they were able to apply for Chapter 115 and receive some assistance.
Okay.
But we are required to ask them to apply for other alternative sources of income. And one of those is pandemic unemployment assistance. So I've actually helped a couple of veterans with that application to get on that, which keeps them off this state or the local benefit. And we don't have to spend money on them. The state is then spending the money on them directly. But
Paul?
yeah, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Justin, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought you finished.
I was just going to say that most of my business has continued. We were able to transition pretty well from. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background.
It's okay.
We were able to transition very well to a remote work status for the time needed, and now we're working on our plans to transition back to a presence within the communities, because all 4 town offices were closed due to the COVID. That's all I wanted to say. Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, a couple of questions. On this particular one, the 78,000 is paid by Grafton, correct? And the 43,000, I'm just trying to understand how the numbers add up to 95,000.
So Justin, I think what Paul is asking is the total budget is 95,000. 78,000 is for veterans benefits in the budget. So that leaves what, $17,000. Is that $17,000 in expenses split amongst the 4 communities?
Yes, other than the line 5770 is veterans benefits. That is specific to Grafton.
Mhm.
And then 5750, the Soldiers Memorial expense, that is specific to Grafton. That goes to the trustees of the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial Committee, and that is the funds that they use to upkeep monuments and memorials within the town, as well as we're working on purchasing a new memorial. Last year, we discovered that there were about 300 service members from the Vietnam conflict that have not been recognized. So we're going to be purchasing a new plaque to put in the Veterans Memorial Hall in the town municipal center. And the lowest quote that we were able to get from the 3 companies we got quoted for was $3,000. And it's going to be an aluminum plaque that is made to look like the bronze plaques in the hallway. So it'll look similar to the other memorials. And so I'm just working on getting that process started.
Yeah, Justin, I think I answered my question. It's right here where it says 94,800. I thought it was just 2 rows, but it's actually the total.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Now I have another question. If you go up a little more. You had said that Grafton pays 21%.
Yep.
If you scroll up, the department head salary was 33. Is that just a typo?
Where do you see 33 go, Paul? I see
1/3 of
60
this
I see
cost.
66.
No, 1/3 of this. No, right there.
Oh,
Grafton is responsible for 1/3.
yeah,
The
but we
description-
appropriate the full amount of the salary, and then the other communities reimburse us.
I understand.
21% of the 63.
So why does it say 1/3 of this cost?
That is a legacy typo.
Okay.
That is left over from when the district only had 3 towns, and I think they split it 3 ways. In 2013, the 4 towns were in the district. I can't remember exactly which town came in last, but in 2013, the district had its 4th member join, and then they calculated the calculation comes out of Mass General Law, Chapter 115, which allows the towns to base their the percentage of the district they're responsible for on the general population as calculated by the last federal census.
So it's
So this-
21%.
And that would be 21%, yes. So that 1/3 is inaccurate. I would remove it if I could. I will make
Look at
sure.
this. Look at this. Gone.
Awesome.
Now,
Look at
here's
that,
the
huh?
other question then. I thought the department head salary was 100,000 total. So shouldn't this be 21% of that? Oh, 100,000 is for both of it.
Yes.
Yeah, the 100,000 is for everybody, and we pay 21% of the
21% of
100,000.
that. Okay.
I
Now
mean,
I
if
understand,
you're
Mark,
just
why you
making
said-
changes and you want to add 100,000 to my department head salary, I would very much appreciate that. No, my department head is 63, and then my 2 part-time wages are the 33,837 that you see.
Got it. Now I understand why Mark was saying that it's confusing because this is not borne by Grafton.
Yeah,
This is
because
the-
it's done 2 different ways. The entire budget is not 21%. Certain line items are 21%. Makes no sense why we wouldn't just do the whole thing, but there might be a reason for that, and I don't know. Mary, did you have another question? Your hand's up?
Yes, I was just gonna explain that, the veterans benefits. It looks like we are a little over budgeted for it. This fiscal year, we've only expended 31,000. So I don't know what the past was, if they, one of the problems is, like Justin mentioned, is it's dependent on the veteran. So he can get a request at any time, and then we have an obligation to pay the veteran. So I don't know if in the past practice was a percentage over, for a buffer, because previously in Munson, I would always have to ask for a FinCom transfer if I budgeted right to the line. So,
And we get, and Mary, I'm sorry to interrupt, we get reimbursed 100% of that, whatever we spend.
no,
It's like, we don't get reimbursed all of it?
no.
Oh, I thought we did.
75% of your veterans, you get reimbursed through the state.
Okay, so 75% of the 78,000, if we spent it all, we would get back. And they're like, what, 18 months behind
Yes.
in terms of the payment? Okay. So, I don't have a problem reducing that if we're tracking at 31,000 right now. Figure we'll end up spending about the $44,000 that we spent last year as that's going. So that might be something that Evan can consider. Dan, you had a question, and then we'll go Angelina and then Evan. So Dan?
Yeah, I just want to mention there were a few other little legacy typos in the text here, and in a few other departments that I looked at. It's definitely a much lower priority problem than some of the other things that we've been dealing with in this budget cycle. But I just wanted to say it might be a good idea for next year to just have all the department heads just go through their own budget and make any updates. And I also want to say with the my thoughts on the veterans benefits line is we're going to have to pay what we're going to have to pay, whether we budget for it or not. So I feel like it's not really a question of whether we're doing right by the veterans, but more of whether we're budgeting wisely. So yeah, I feel like it maybe could come down a little bit, but I guess my question would be, what would we do if a few unexpected veterans signed on for that put us over that budget? Would we need,
We could
would
either
they
do a
be able
reserve
to
fund.
spend into it? Would we get a reserve transfer?
We could either do a reserve fund transfer or wait to town meeting and do a line item transfer into the budget. So eventually, you're right, Dan, we would be responsible to pay it. And then, so we don't have to put it all up front here. And if we're tracking at $45,000 this year, I don't know why we wouldn't just budget it. And if it comes in a little bit higher, then we can always do a reserve fund transfer, a line item transfer at town meeting. So that's one way to do it. Justin, did you want to answer anything that Dan said?
I did, yeah. So that $78,000 is a legacy amount as well from a few years ago. That's just been level funded. When I started in 2017, we had about 20 people receiving Chapter 115 benefits in Grafton, and now we're down to 10 due to life happening, but largely in part due to my efforts to get them onto different types of benefits such as Social Security disability, or helping them apply for VA disability compensation. That is one way that we've been able to move some benefit recipients from the town funds onto like federal funds. So
And so that was how many years ago? 2 years ago, you dropped down from 20 to 10 based on that. So you've been servicing 10 veterans in this budget for the last couple of years?
no, 10 is this year.
Is
It's
this year?
been probably about 15 in the last 2 years, down from 20 when I started in 2017. So like I said, we've had a few people come on, a few people move, they move out of the town, they move to a different service area, so they come off my budget. So if you wanted to drop it down, I think it's been kept up because of the effort from the previous town administrator's office to avoid having to go through like a town meeting process to add more funds. They've just kept it at 78, but they also didn't have any type of budget crisis that until like last year
Understood.
that they talked about. So if I'd be comfortable, if you wanted my recommendation, going down to like 50,000 for that line, I think that would be sufficient for this year. I don't foresee many people coming off the pandemic unemployment assistance and needing Chapter 115. Knock on wood. So that has been continued by the federal government, and I think it's gonna stay in place until they're pretty sure that no one needs it anymore.
Understood.
And so that would be my recommendation, that line specifically.
Dan, did you have a follow-up?
Well, I had one more point I
ahead.
want to make, which was when I met with Justin to talk about the budget, he mentioned that he's been asking for, I think it was an administrative assistant. So I think one more staff member, one more part-time staff. And he said that based on the guidelines from the guidebook from I wrote down the state, so I guess that's not very specific, but based on the guidebook, he should have I think 4 staff, but basically the point is if he had a little bit more assistance, he could do more community outreach, reach more veterans, and also spend more time getting people off of the local benefit and finding state and federal benefits that they could use. So I just wanted to bring that point up.
Thank you. Angelina, and then Evan.
So I, 2 things. If we're getting reimbursed for 75% of it, then we're really only getting 25% out of whatever we take, right? Like as far as actual savings. Where did you say the 75% goes?
General
We
fund.
kind of- General fund. Okay. My other thought is that, we should probably just take a quick look at over the last, like before 2020, what we were using in there, because with the pandemic insurance, that's really made a big difference for people. And with the vaccine, I don't know how much longer that's going to happen, how much longer people are going to be getting that benefit. So maybe just taking a quick look historically before we reduce that line and make sure we're not reducing it too much. Because I don't think the last year and a half have been typical for this.
That's a very, very fair point. Evan?
I think best practice is probably a 5-year look back plus 10%. So you go ahead and average out what you've spent in the last 5 years, add 10%, so you have a little bit of cushion, just in case, so you don't have to, run for a transfer for $500 or something. But that would reduce that number from what I'm hearing. I haven't looked at the 5-year actuals, but you'd probably wind up being somewhere around the 50 to 55 range.
Okay. Mary, did you have a follow-up? Nope. Okay. Justin, I have a question. How's it gone working with the veterans, getting them vaccinated? Have you been working with them to schedule appointments and things like that?
So the Central Western Mass VA dropped the ball real badly. Boston was down to like the 55 plus category before they even started offering any clinics in the Worcester County area specifically. There's going to be the first clinic in Leominster next Tuesday. And that's only after we've reached out to all of our state legislators on the federal side, and also made a lot of noise with the State Veteran Service Department and the governor. The Veteran Service Officer Association of Massachusetts made a big noise, lots of noise to try to get these clinics for the western half of the state, past Worcester especially. They don't even have a clinic, or actually, sorry, they had one in Ludlow, but they're telling veterans to go from Worcester to Bedford or Boston to get vaccinated. That's like an hour drive. And if you have, health compromised veterans who are in an advanced age category, they're not gonna be able to make that trip twice to get vaccinated. So the Leominster clinic is gonna be offering the Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine. So that's very good news for us. But when veterans call, they have to be eligible for VA healthcare to get vaccinated through the VA. So I will help them figure that out or apply for it if that's, if they're eligible. I'll screen them for that and help them with the application. But many veterans that are not enrolled in VA healthcare have too much income to be eligible for it. So they have to go through regular healthcare avenues that the regular civilian population uses. But it's been a hot topic. I'd say probably half my calls over the last month have been about the vaccine.
I would imagine. Sue Robbins.
I just wanted to ask Justin, what are your office hours? I mean, I know this year the pandemic has been unsettling for everybody and no one has been doing regular hours, but in a normal year, what are your office hours for Grafton?
In a normal year, I was splitting my time between the 4 different towns. So my office hours in Grafton, I would spend Tuesday 8 to 4. Actually, Tuesday I would spend 8 to 7. I had extended office hours in Grafton, so I would stay normal office hours plus from 5 to 7 in case anyone who was working needed to see me after hours. And I picked Grafton because Grafton has the largest population of non-retired veterans that I work with, I guess you could say, that are still actively employed. Shrewsbury doesn't have a lot of younger veterans. It has a majority of older retirement age veterans. So we also have a part-time agent that works after hours in Westboro on the same day on Tuesday. So
just another question, Justin, on that Tuesday for your office hour, how many of the veterans come to show up to ask you questions or to talk with you? And do they have to make an appointment?
So I try to post off of walk-in hours in the morning from like 9 to 12. And that is open for anyone. And then I schedule appointments in the afternoon or evening time as needed. But if I'm there, anyone can walk in and ask me any questions they want, and they quite often do, especially with the Grafton office being located right next to the senior center. I usually have some regulars that come in and talk, but most of the time I'd say I probably have 4 to 5 veterans that just show up to ask random questions. as well as probably 2 or 3 scheduled appointments every Tuesday.
Excellent. Any other questions for Justin? Justin, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to come see us. It was a good discussion. We covered a lot of ground and gave maybe $20,000 to Evan to balance the budget. So you're welcome, Evan. That's our job. So anyway, thank you very, very much, Justin. Have a great rest of the day. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. I want to also offer, if you have any questions, Evan can give you my email address, or if Sue, please feel free to contact me. I'm very happy to talk with you at any time about anything to do with the budget, especially. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Justin. Next up is, where are we going to? Amy Perkins, the treasurer. I see Amy is here. Amy, welcome. But before we start with you, Evan, I see that William is in the attendee. Do you want me to promote him up to panelist? Yes, you can do that. Good morning, Amy. How are you?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being here. Hold on one second. I want to get your budget up on the screen. Hope I'm going in the right order here. Oh, there you are. So the way we've been doing it, Amy, is that we go through, we let the department head walk us through the budget, talk about issues. And then if we have any questions, we'll just jump right in and start hammering you with questions. So we'll let you introduce your budget to us, and then we'll take it from there. So all yours.
So my budget is pretty level funded. It's not very exciting. There isn't very much changes. There's the department head salary, the administrative personnel, which is I have a full-time clerk and a part-time clerk. And then the assistant treasurer collector position, we just made an offer at 52,500. So that will be can be lowered from what we budgeted for. There's overtime, which is level funded. That's just covering vacations, any time off for the staff.
So this line item right here, this 55 is 52.5?
52.5, yeah.
Any questions on salaries? One of the things that Amy and I talked about when we had our meeting last week was the staffing. This office used to have 4.5 employees. Now we're down to 3.5. And I asked Amy if that was an issue, and it appears to be working okay at this point. So I thought that was very, very important to understand that the staffing has decreased over the last couple of years, but they're making do with what they have, which is a testament to Amy and her staff. So thank you very much for that. Any questions on wages before we get to expenses? Awesome. What do you want to talk to us about here?
Again, mostly level funded repair and maintenance, printers and equipment. Our professional and technical kind of fluctuates depending on how many bills we mail out. So I just kind of used what we actually spent in FY20, what I budgeted for in FY21, and then kind of adjusted it from there. There's a few knowns, like our software usually increases 4% each year. So I added that in. Conference and seminar fees, that's for our continuing education in August, or for the new assistant treasurer collector will be to go towards getting certified on either side. There's courses and then an exam at the end.
Is that enough to cover both you and the new assistant?
Yes. Yeah, that's for both.
Okay.
Tax title expense, I don't know that we did add on to the recap, so that can probably be lowered as well. That was something I did with Carter. We added, I want to say 15,000 to Mary's recap that we'll get for that. So that number will be able to come down. We're advertising for a small portion, 18, 19, and 20. We were a bit behind on tax taking, so we're doing a catch up on that. And then office supplies, pretty standard.
I'm confused on the tax title. Raised on the recap for what fiscal year? This current fiscal year?
This current fiscal year.
So the 11,500 that's budgeted for next fiscal year, you're saying it could be less? Mary, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, it looks like they kind of had them raise 25,000 on the tax rate recap.
All right.
speaking with the consultant, her understanding is that it would just be booked their current budget this year. So I'll have to talk to Amy. I don't know what the understanding was with that, if it was supposed to go into a fund balance and draw off of the 25,000. Because if I'm just transferring it in right now, then it's just gonna close at the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, so that's why I asked, that's why I was confused. So this 11,500 may still be needed for the following fiscal year. That's
That's
where my
what I'm
confusion was.
thinking.
Yeah, I think you might be, I think you might be right. Barry, did you have a question before we move on?
Yeah, the Acela software, does that tie in with SoftWrite or is that something totally separate?
That is SoftWrite,
Oh, it is, okay.
the current company that owns them.
So, oh boy, is that 15,000 total for Acela maintenance for the entire company? Yeah, the entire town, or is
No, that's just my portion of it.
So we
okay.
divide it up amongst the departments that use the software. You get a percentage, Mary gets a percentage, and so on.
Geez, how much does that all add up to on an annual basis?
Don't
Mary?
have that here.
A lot.
That I'm still compiling because I have different invoices. We pay Acela, then we pay SoftWrite. So I'm pulling those invoices. I have to get those figures for the two companies I'm speaking with.
Evan, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that is in this budget that we'll correct for the next fiscal year is, and this was an issue in Munson as well. You know, we have portions of each software spread out amongst each of the departments, and it's really hard to figure out what it is that you're paying. Well, I mean, we will know, but as far as transparency goes, what we did, we created the technology line that would be for, say, SoftWrite. And then in the notes, that's where it would break it apart by department, but at least there'd be one spot where you could see where that's what you're paying in fees. So, I mean, software is extremely expensive, and it's almost shockingly expensive when you start to look at what it costs to run a town with this much money coming in and out.
Makes sense. Barry, did you have a follow-up to that before I move on to
No,
Gopal?
let me lower my hands here.
Go ahead, Gopal.
Is that a contractual increase of 4% in the software piece?
It varies. I just know in the past that's what.
The reason I'm asking is, given the COVID situation, I think software companies are more amenable if the town reaches out and says, guys, come on, you can't impose a 4% on us given the situation. And I'm just wondering if we can do that and save some money for the town.
Fair question. The only problem with that, Gopal, is that once the pandemic is over, they'll more than make up for it in future years. You may get hit with a huge increase in one particular year.
That is
It's a
something we
fair
could
point.
negotiate, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's a fair
yeah.
point. What we're gonna be talking about with Mary. We do Mary's budget, Mary Laurier's budget. We're gonna be talking about software anyway, so that'd be a good time to have that conversation.
Okay.
Evan, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, that was the point I was going to make, that maybe we could push that conversation off till we got to Mary and talk about where she's at.
Appreciate it. Anything else for Amy? Budget's pretty standard, pretty self-explanatory. Amy, my question to you, and you and I talked about this a little bit. If you just update us on where you are with various bonding issues and what the plan is and how that's all working out, if you don't mind.
For the debt?
Yeah.
So we had a bond call this week. We are doing a bonding the end of this month. We are financing the local share of the library, as well as the remaining portion of the DPW project. We're also doing refunding for the callable maturities for the 2010 and 2011 financing for the high school. So we're kind of lumping that all in. And then we have an advance refunding of the 2012 bonds for the high school, but that is dependent on rates and what we,
So you're gonna go out and you're gonna figure out if the rates make sense to refinance, and if they don't, just leave it where you are? Yes, Evan?
Yeah, actually, Amy explained that much better than I was going to explain it.
Well,
So that's great. We're looking, the only variable in that is the non-tax bonds that we're looking to reissue, and whether or not it makes sense to do that now or wait until they're actually eligible to stay as a non-tax refunding, which would be in January of 2022. So that's a little bit of a gamble. We're gonna wait and see what the market tells us when we go out to bid. Originally, we were looking at saving close to $1 million over the course of these notes. Right now, we're projecting probably closer to 800,000 because the market ticked up a little bit. It's still a significant amount of money. It's important to note that most of that is override money, so doesn't help the operational budget, but it helps the taxpayer, which is just as important in my opinion. And then lastly, I just want to mention, so we did have that bond call this week. Myself, Mary, Loria, Mary Oliver, and Amy, we've only been doing this together for 3 weeks when we were on that call, and I have been on a number of these, and it went really well. I think we killed it as far as the interview portion goes, and so I'm anticipating that we'll be stable in our bond rating. I doubt that we're going to go up given the amount of change that Grafton has seen, but we are looking at a 1 to 2 year goal to move our bond rating up. So that's our.
we're double A, Evan, we're double A plus now, so the goal, of course, is to get to triple A.
Correct. Yep. And the goal for this call number 1 was to stay at double A plus, realistically, because part of the questions they ask is, has there been any turnover in the key financial positions? And Mary and I
1
are
or 2
like,
maybe.
probably. Yeah. So, but I mean, I think overall it was a really good interview process. So I'm feeling really comfortable there.
Did you meet with Standard & Poor's?
It was Standard & Poor's. Yep. And so, it's an interesting dynamic because Amy and Mary Oliver have worked on this stuff together. So they have, their comfort level with each other, and Mary, Loria, and I have worked on bond calls together. So we have our comfort level, but I think I was as a town administrator, I was extremely proud of how well we all worked together, given our lack of knowledge of each other's,
That's awesome.
How we work together. So
That's
I just
awesome.
want to thank everybody that worked on that. That was a great effort.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that update. Anything else for Amy? Okay, Amy, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday morning and joining us. We appreciate it. Great
You're
job as
welcome.
always. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Hi, Mary Oliver. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Let me get your budget up on the screen here. I like to make everybody dizzy by whipping through this thing as we do it. So, so you heard the spiel, so it's all yours. Walk us through it.
Okay, we're gonna start with the personnel budget. I've kept it, we have the elected officials, and that's been level funded from 15, because the budget was 15 in 21, and it's 15 this year. I did decrease in my administrative personnel because we lost Ken, who is now the principal assessor in Uxbridge. And we have a new employee in Cody who's doing a great job, but he's at a lower step. So I was able to adjust that budget down. Let me see.
What's your staff makeup, Mary? Your staff makeup is you and 2 full-time clerks?
I have an office manager and who's been here 21 years. And then I also have a data collector / office administrative personnel. And Cody's very new and he's doing a great job. And like I said, Tammy's been here for 21 years and she knows everything. My go-to girl. So that's where that decrease came, because of a lower step.
That's
For
right.
my
these lines
overtime,
here, okay.
I've level funded my overtime. We don't use a lot of overtime, but sometimes you get stuck on a call at the end of the day, or, there's pressing issues where, we have to get some work done. So I left that at 680, so I've level funded that. Longevity, oh, is it in there? Oh,
It's in there.
bumped up a line.
Yep. That's the 1,500.
That is for, she's been here 21 years. Then I did have, in my professional, I didn't know, does anybody have any questions on the salaries or anything? No, okay. For my professional technical, I did have to increase the budget because of the vision software maintenance and the web hosting. And when we initially put that in, we knew that every year there'd be a slight adjustment. So that was the increase of about 2,175 for that. Otherwise, everything else has stayed the same. For my interim adjustments, this is where my increase was from 13 to 18. As of this year, the Department of Revenue is no longer valuing our utilities. And so this is something that we have to, I've hired RRC to do. So that was an increase from the 2,000, which they were working on, up to the 6,000. Also for RRC, for doing all our personal property valuations and data collecting on all of those and any adjustments, that was an increase of 1,000 for this year. So those are the contracted prices.
Barry?
I'm sorry, I got a bug here. I'm looking at the department budget and I cannot find references to Acela or SoftWrite. Do you tie into those? I would think you do.
Yes, we do tie into them, but that doesn't come out of my budget. So that's basically, I believe that's either in Amy's or the town's budget.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Evan. But we don't pay for any of those pieces of the software.
Your software is Vision that you use for the assessing software. So the Vision talks to SoftWrite. And so there's not a direct cost within the assessor's budget. It's in the other budgets. But
Perfect.
the Vision, Barry, the Vision is the important budget that Mary's carrying, because that's what runs the town's valuation system.
Okie dokie.
Can I, Mary, follow up on a question with that? Where are we with the, are we in our second year, third year, fourth year? Are we coming into our fifth year for the full measuring list? Where are we at?
No, we had a full recertification in 2020.
Okay.
So and now they've changed it from a 3-year to a 5-year. So we're not due again until 2025.
Perfect. You can breathe for a couple of years.
Going out there and making sure that, all the field reviews that, to go out to neighborhoods and things like that, that we're staying on track for our cyclical inspection, so that at the end, the year before our recertification, I don't have to go, oh, we have to go out and, look at 2,500 properties. So this is consistent. And like I said, my data collector and myself, we're going out consistently to pick
So
up
you
all
do
this.
what, about a fifth of the town a year?
Yes.
Good plan. Good plan. Any other questions for Mary on expenses? Before we let Mary leave, overlay, how's the overlay looking, and is it budgeted? What are we carrying for next year? And are you comfortable with that number? And do you know off the top of your head how much is in the overlay reserve?
Overlay reserve, after we deduct what we have in there now, we're probably looking about 400,000. That's taking out any abatements and exemptions that we've processed for this year. We usually put in about 300 for our overlay out of every year out of our recap. We might want to put a little more in there just to be on the say, a cushion, because we are seeing more. I haven't seen a lot of exemptions coming through. Some will fall off and some other people will come on for the exemptions. My abatements are very consistent. Like right now, I'm only looking at about probably 40,000 if there's 4 cases were to win at the ATB.
How many abatements did you get this year?
I got 16.
Oh,
Compared
wow.
to,
Nothing.
yes, I was very
nothing.
excited.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yes. When I first started here, when I walked in 17, there were 62 of them on my desk. So, yes, so, and I think people are realizing right now in the town, literally the sales that are going on, they're selling even higher than I have them assessed for. And this has been consistent for the past 3 years. So, the market
Is
is.
the DOR forcing you, is the DOR forcing you to do an adjustment to match the sales based on the sales data, or are they allowing you to stay where you're at?
Okay, in 2020, I was at 98% of my assessed value to sales ratio. For 2021, when I did all my data came in, and it came in at 96%. I held it at that 96%, so I didn't do a lot of adjustments across the town because of, COVID, and no one knows what's really going to happen. Right now, I've done a prelim of basically where my sales are. I'm at 94%, so which means I will probably bump everybody up.
Yeah, you have to be between 95 and 105, right?
I have a 10% leeway.
Yep.
So, but I like to be closer to that, 4 to 5%.
Yep.
So there will be an increase because of my sales, and things are on the market for 2 days, 3 days, and so.
You know what we get to do? We get to say it's Evan's fault when that happens. Andy, what's going on?
Never blame it. No. Oh, I wouldn't do that. So.
I know.
But yeah,
Andy,
that's
did
where
you have a question?
the values are going up, and I find it, a lot of our seniors don't understand that, how come I haven't done anything to my house? I go, you don't have to. This is basically what's happening here in the town of Grafton. So we have a very strong market.
People also have to remember that as the values go up, the tax rate comes down proportionately based on the expenditures, but it's still, when somebody sees a value go from, say they're at 600,000 and all of a sudden they're at 700,000 the next year, it is sort of a shock. Andy, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no worries. Small question anyways, but the overtime line had gone up a couple $100, and I know it's not a massive amount, but I was just wondering if that was all COVID related, or if that was kind of a necessary increase that we expect to stay at that level.
For my overtime budget, I've budgeted since I've been here for about $680. So we actually did 456, but the year before, when we did the complete revow, that budget was expended plus another 1,200 on top of it. So that's basically, I've just level funded it. I keep it at that price. It depends on what's going on, and how many big projects we have going on, or basically if the customer or taxpayer is going to keep you on the phone because they're calling at 4:15, and my staff isn't getting out of here till 4:45, 5 o'clock. So it's not like whole days at a time. It's a little bit here and there. So.
Awesome. Go ahead, Mary.
Only
Mary.
$60 has been spent out of the overtime budget so far this year.
No overtime in my department, sorry. Keep my costs down.
Well, that's, since the town hall hasn't been open to the public,
Correct.
There's really no need for overtime because nobody's in the building. So, well, now we're back, but that number may go up between now and the end of the year. Who knows, as we move forward. Thank you, Mary. Any other questions for Mary Oliver? Too confusing. Mary, one of you are going to have to change your name when you come in here the next time.
Yeah.
Very, very confusing. Any other questions for Mary Oliver? Excellent. So Mary, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to come and see us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. So next up is pretty much Mary and Evan for the rest of the meeting. Do we want to do the town accountant's budget first, and then we can go into everything else? So let me get that up on the screen. There we go. So Mary, if you want to walk us through your budget, and we will interrupt you and ask questions and put you on the spot. All yours.
The budget that you see presented was the budget that CATA did. Everything is just level funded. The only change really is to the finance director salary line. But all other funds have been level funded.
So this line here from 89 to 1025 is because the position has changed to finance director?
Correct.
And then everything else stayed the same. So I guess my question is, Mary and I and Barry and Andy on over several days because of Zoom problems, tried to talk to Mary about her budget. And I think we finally had a complete meeting after a couple of days, but I guess but the question that we want to talk about, and I know Evan made mention of it in his presentation that he sent us out the other day, is the assistant town accountant position that you've been talking about. Do you want to talk to us about that?
Yes, I did talk to Evan about it and, requested an assistant town accountant, someone that has an accounting degree, and that someone that can help me with accounts reconciliations. So far this year, accounts receivables have not been reconciled. Nothing has been reconciled. Let's just say, cash is reconciled up until, December. So that's good. That's the most important. Everything else, I can catch up, but, it's just hard to catch up by myself. And also the volume, the work volume, it's there. You have millions and millions of dollars, funneling in and out of town hall. So you really do need 3 people in that office to have it function correctly. And also, then and then this segues into, the chart of account restructure. And so, having assistant will certainly help me because that's going to be, demanding, and that's going to be hundreds and hundreds of hours between me and the consultants, restructuring the chart of accounts.
So Barry, you go first. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, Barry.
Now I forget. In reconciling for the current fiscal year, did we ask the consultants we hired out to do some of that, or did we just say, no, don't do that at all?
No, what they did was they needed them to come in to close the books. So the consultants came in.
Okay.
Well, there was two problems. One was, the prior town accountant left in last June.
Yep.
And then the accounting clerk was on or starting maternity, I think in July.
Yep.
August, around that time frame. So you had no one in that office at all. And so they had to hire the consultants, one to run the warrants to get everybody paid, and then 2, to close your books, to certify your free cash, to help with the special town meeting. And she helped with the tax rate recap. And then at that point, Carter, culled it back some because the cost was, increasing so much. So they certainly did the best they could under, restrictions of hours.
So do we have, I guess a question following up on that point, for this fiscal year, we're gonna probably have to do some transfers at town meeting to cover your salary and the cost of the consultant and everything else? How much of a shortfall are we looking at within your salary line item?
So I've been working on all of that, and that you won't need any money to cover salaries because no one was in that position. It was budgeted for 89,000
How was the consultant paid?
out of is it like well, let me find the line. It was a service, professional and technical.
Oh, the
service
TA,
line.
out of the TA's office budget. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So there'll be an extra $44,000 in my salary line item at the end of the fiscal year that will close to the general fund.
Okay, so you don't need any additional funds.
Right, so I
additional
could
funds.
either transfer from the salary line to my expense line because I am over budgeted this year, or I was gonna ask for a request from the finance committee.
Makes sense. Barry?
Is this Kelly and Ryan? Are they the consultants?
Kevin, Ryan, no.
Kelly and Ryan is the tax collector, assistant tax collector.
Never mind. I'm looking at the, I guess it's the general ledger. I'm trying to figure that out.
Any other, oh, go ahead, Evan.
Thanks. I don't want to jump in and steal Mary's thunder, but we have met and talked about the, Mary's like, yeah, but he's gonna. So we have met and discussed the assistant accountant position. I think it's an extremely important position for the town to recognize. And it looks as though, you know, a lot of the accounting functions came out of the TA office in the past. That's really not the way that I view the organization to run the most efficiently. I really look at it as, you know, the accounting finance director office is the center of the hub, or is the hub, and everything spokes off of that. We should be running everything through that office so that we're accounting for everything properly. And that's really where we're going to catch our big deficiencies, at least financially, going through that office. So
Evan, just to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Jump
I
in.
guess my question is, so before, my understanding of the way things worked was the assistant town administrator basically did all the budget stuff.
Yep.
And the town accountant played a very small role in the development and the establishment of the budget. So Carter came up with a plan, and that was to create the director of finance position, and took that responsibility and put it into the responsibility of the town accountant, thereby creating the director of finance position.
Right.
So now, not only does the town accountant have to do the regular functions of accounting, but now Mary has to take on the whole budgeting aspect, which now requires additional manpower and additional staff within that office.
Yeah, so they culled that out of the ATA position, and they put that into the finance director's office, and, you know, increased the salary, which is in my opinion necessary, because the position has a lot more responsibility. The problem is that you cut that workload out of the ATA's office. You didn't create capacity anywhere, and so, you know, Mary's trying to do her normal functions as a finance director, but then also, you know, support our office and budget functions, and really becomes the finance director is a key administrative team member that does other things now. Now she's doing more interviews. She does union negotiations with me, you know, all the things a finance director does. And so I think the position is necessary for that reason, but I also think that there's no continuity of operation should something happen to Mary, which is what we just saw the town go through. So to not learn that lesson, I think is going to be a mistake on our part, and we need
I agree with you.
figure out how to capture that.
So let me ask you a question. What do you have in mind for a salary, and do you want to do that in fiscal 22? And if so, how are you going to fund it?
So I think that the general approach we're having right now, and we'll get into this a little bit further later, but we're looking at, you know, what we need to budget for the 2 ongoing contract negotiations that we have, plus any minor changes that we need to make salary wise that would be for non-union employees, and then whatever is left, if it's enough that we think we can fund that position, we would try to push that through in this fiscal year.
So you'd like to get it done as soon as possible?
I would. I can see how underwater that department is. And I can also see, as we go through these conversations, the amount of things that we're missing by not having one central repository for all these accounting moves that happen on a daily basis. You know, I think that the level of payback that you will get by funding that position will become apparent very quickly.
And you're talking, if you said this, I'm sorry, I missed it. What are you thinking for a salary for that position?
Mary and I haven't discussed that yet. I mean, I would think that that's a probably $55,000 to $65,000 position, but that's purely anecdotal, and we would have to discuss that further and do our homework on that.
Understood. Any other questions on the assistant town accountant's position? Evan, would it help if the if the finance committee took a position, because obviously you have to go to the select board to get them to agree to the position. So if you think it would help to have the finance committee debate, discuss, and make a recommendation in support or against whatever the finance committee's pleasure is, obviously, would
Right.
that be helpful to you?
It would. I have already spoken to the select board about it. They seemed pretty agreeable to it. I think they've recognized that deficit as well. But I think the more that we can portray the town of Grafton moving in lockstep together and reaching out and having conversations with different groups and getting their opinions and feedback, I think it's all the better for the community.
Yeah, finance committee can take that up later, if that's the mood of the FinCom. Any other questions on wages and salaries within the town accountant's budget? Mary, you want to walk us through the expenses, and I know Barry has questions, as do I, on the software. So if you can talk about that a little bit and what your thoughts are there, I'd appreciate it.
So yes, Evan and I, we've met with Vadar and Munis, and they actually, I think Munis just emailed me back a quote Friday afternoon. I wasn't even able to open it. I have to fill out a questionnaire for Vadar, and they're going to get back to me, and they're going to both do presentations to the whole finance team on their modules.
So I was going to say, if you didn't open that quote from Munis, you didn't have a heart attack on Friday, which is great news. You'll save that for Monday. Have you got a quote from Vadar?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. So can you, Mary, Barry, and I talked about this, and Andy talked about this with a lot. Mary, can you just tell us why we need to update the software and what your issues are with the current software?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I should have started with that.
No, that's okay.
So, this SoftWrite, I don't have anything against the software itself. But I think the problem was, lack of understanding with the UMIS accounting structure. We semi follow it, but not really. And so, for example, I have to report every expenditure and every revenue that the town receives to the Department of Revenue. And I have to break it down by grants and revolving and general fund and bonds and stuff like that. So for one example, I have to break down your state and federal grants by town and school. I should have 4 funds for that. And within each fund, I should have fund balances for each grant. And in Grafton, they have it all in one fund, rolled up into one fund balance. And so for year end, what they do is, they extract the data from SoftWrite, and then you have to manipulate all the information into pivot tables to find out your beginning balance, and then, run your expense and revenue reports to find out how much money you received and expended out of those funds to get to your ending balance. And it's just, I see even the assistant town clerks, they're asking, what's this revenue number, or what's that revenue number? These should be standard revenue numbers. You should have the same revenue number, say it's, real estate taxes. It should be, Fund 1, 4080. And then you would have another segment for your levy year. So there would never be a question. Everybody would know, oh, it's 4080. We just got to know what levy year we're hitting. So we're just, when I go to create an account, I'm just finding any account number that's available, and I'm creating an account, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no continuity between it, and you can't make heads or tails of it.
So that's a function of the software. not a function of the way our accounting practices were.
Correct.
Okay.
This is your software.
Gotcha. Let me interrupt you for 1 second. I see Irene and Sue have their hands up. So Irene?
I basically had the question that you just asked her, but I'm just going to kind of double check. Because I work in Munis right now, and previously I worked in iVisions, which is, you know, kind of a sister program to Munis. And it was just a question of having all the accounts set up. So I've got, you know, an account for the school's Title I for 2019, because that carries through for a couple of years. And there's a separate account, and it's delineated solely by project number for Title I for 2020. And then a separate one for Title I for 2022. And that's specific to the school. And then if the town's using Title I money, or the city, because I work in the city of Lawrence, that's its own account. So you're telling me that in SoftWrite, I could not set up those accounts even if I wanted to? Wow.
That's
Okay.
crazy. That's crazy. Sue
Yeah,
Robbins?
that's really insane.
I just wanted to say that Tim had gone to the IT committee and asked for recommendations, and this was one, SoftWrite was one that they did not recommend for this town. David is here if you'd like to hear why. He's on the IT committee. So if you'd like to ask him why they didn't want it, I'll let him speak.
So are you saying that the IT committee recommended not to go with SoftWrite and we went with SoftWrite anyway?
Correct.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Hi, David. How are you?
Hey,
Oh,
Wow.
he appears and disappears.
yeah, this was, and I don't remember I probably have it written down somewhere, but it was back in the, I don't know, 2008, 2010, 2012 timeframe, whatever it was. Yeah, the IT committee was asked to review several proposals that were submitted in response to an RFP for financial software. And I don't remember all the other companies that were involved, but I do very distinctly remember that we did not, it was unanimously, we on the IT committee did not think that SoftWrite was the best. It is my recollection, which may or may not be 100% accurate, that SoftWrite was chosen on the basis of price. And you know, fun fact, if this means anything to any of you, SoftWrite was built around the Fox Pro, Visual Fox Pro, which at the time was already an obsolete framework for building things. And I did some work in that, and I'm kind of very familiar with that, and I was a little bit surprised at that. But anyway, yeah, it was built on something that was obsolete at least 10 years ago. Yeah, and like I say, I don't remember all the details. We don't need to know all the details, but suffice it to say that it was a unanimous opinion of the IT committee that that was not the best choice.
That's very, very helpful. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Sure. Two things. One, David popping out of the background is the most baller thing I've seen in a while. That was pretty awesome. Second, I did get a welcome email from the IT committee, and I do recognize that that'll be something that Mary and I will be engaged with as we look to update this software. I think we want to have as many opinions there as possible, and I think that it's important to recognize that it would be our intent to, utilize that outcome to make our choice. We're not going to, if the committee universally says this is an awful software, don't go with it, then I can't imagine a realm in which we would do otherwise. So that's all.
So the intent, so before I go to Sue and then Barry and then go Paul, so the intent, Evan, as far as you're concerned, is this is something that you think we need to do and you're supporting Mary's efforts in trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah, so I think that they hired me to do other things than just accounting. Mary is the accountant. She says words that I don't know and understand. And if she says that software is not working correctly, then we're going to find another software. And obviously I'm kidding. I do know the words that she said, but
you made us a little nervous there, Evan.
No, I know. I could see like some people smirked and then some people were like, oh my God, this is it. I really, I put tremendous faith and stock into what Mary says needs to happen as far as the software that the town needs to run on. And so if that's a priority and SoftWrite's not doing what we want it to do, then we're going to certainly look for another vendor.
And we do have the potential, you and I had a brief conversation on this, Evan, that we do have the potential of using some of the capital override money if we needed to spend money on getting a software system set up, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I think, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, the timeline for this is, we're gonna get through this budget cycle, get through town meeting and then kind of go after this in earnest. Because it's probably a 6 to 8 month process.
Yeah.
Not only from the standpoint of getting into their queue, but also just the amount of time it takes to migrate everything over and do it properly.
Do the conversion. Go Paul and then Barry. Thank you, Evan. Go Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just going to say it tongue in cheek, Evan, please don't do it if the IT committee says no. But now that he says that he'll listen to Mary, I'll say, Mary, please don't do anything which IT committee doesn't ask him to do. That was crazy. Sorry.
Go ahead, Barry. Thank you. Go Barry.
Okay, I got to throw this in. I used to program in COBOL. Yes, I know. It's, yes, the real COBOL with assembler language underneath it. And you say, well, that's old and outdated. Oh my God. The Internal Revenue Service runs on COBOL. It's still running on COBOL. Yes, they ran into issues when they said, oh, we're going to have to do these COVID checks, blah, blah, blah. They did it. Leave that aside. What I'd really like to know is what does it totally cost us each year to run with SoftWrite, Acela, whatever we're calling it now? And have we approached them and said, look, guys, this is a technical problem here, and this is something that we really want to have done. What will it cost for us to have you do that? Or what will it cost you if we walk away and we're no longer going to use this and we're going to look for something else? So it's, what does it cost for us to use SoftWrite now? What will it cost us to use Vadar or Munis? Because my understanding is Munis is at least 400,000 to buy. And then I would assume that there's some software licenses or support licenses through the year. And Vadar, my understanding is it's going to be about $1,000 a month per feature, whatever that means in accounting. Yeah, this is the online, well, that's not a bug, it's a feature. But so I'd like to know what are the comparative costs for the two of them. And it really, if it is extreme, but we need it, then we got to do it. But if it's something that can be worked out with SoftWrite, then I think that would be the fiscally prudent way of going about it. COBOL lives.
Go ahead, Evan. Evan, if you want to respond to that, Mary, and then go to Gopal. Go ahead.
I'd like to know that I did call SoftWrite and I did put a ticket in for the account manager to call me about restructuring the chart of accounts for the town of Grafton. And this was, late February, early March, and they have not called me back. And another thing, their support is terrible. Friday, I called them at 7 o'clock in the morning. And at 9 o'clock, I called them again. They finally called me at noontime to fix my issue. So I couldn't work in SoftWrite from 7 to noon because SoftWrite did not call me back because I got to put in a ticket.
Okay. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Go ahead. Evan, did you want to follow up on that before I go to Gopal?
I was going to make sure that Mary drove home the point that we are having some customer service issues there as well, which is troubling. But also, Barry, to your point, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're certainly going to have that conversation with SoftWrite. It's just that our interactions so far have been so lackluster that we're already starting to not have confidence that conversation is going to yield the result that we're looking for.
Yeah, agreed.
Gopal?
Yeah,
And then
from a technology perspective, I would say that if this company has its competency in Foxborough and they haven't seen the light of the day that they need to develop their platform on new technology, I would not trust anything that they would say that they would help us move from one platform to the other. Whenever companies come up with, and I've worked in this industry, their platform either is buggy or doesn't have all the features that the previous platform had. That'll cost in time and money many, many times. The second thing, Barry has a very good point of bug versus feature. That is something that I would suggest that you should negotiate out of. I mean, subscription service typically includes bug fixes and new feature enhancements. You don't want to get into custom software development. You would rather not ask for a feature that is custom, because then what happens is then we are at the mercy of them to continue
Right.
charging us every time we want improvements to those features. So as standardized an implementation we could have, because I would find it difficult that town of Grafton has something very unique compared to other towns that are using that software. So definitely don't want to do that bug versus feature thing, because yeah, if I were them, I would say that's not a bug, that's a feature, because it's income, revenue, right?
Thank
Yeah.
you, Gopal. Irene?
Just Mary, when you were saying that the customer service was awful, I'm on a listserv for munis, and I've got people saying that they've had tickets open for months and even over a year. So do a ton of research, talking to the people using the different systems. However, I do want to add this to that comment. I had an instructor when I was going for my SBA license say the way she approached Munis, because everyone loves to hate it. She said, I always say, okay, Munis, help me with whatever it is she wanted to do. And I took that attitude with me. I've not had a whole lot of trouble with it. I'm a happy user, but I'm also not in the IT department, you know, with big, huge system-wide problems. And the people that are talking about these kinds of open tickets have big system-wide problems. So we're getting off track. I'm sorry, Mark, but
No,
I
that's
just
all right.
throw
Fair
that in
point.
there.
Yep. So I think what I'm hearing here from Evan and from Mary, and then from a majority members of the finance committee that have spoken, is that we support at least examining the getting new software if we can get it. Now, obviously, Evan, I would imagine, following up on Barry's point, you want to just go to SoftWrite or Sell, whatever the hell they're called, and figure out exactly what they can do for you, if anything. And if it makes sense to make a change, then you make a change at that point. We just went through it in Groton 2 years ago. We were having problems with our vendor, and we did a search. We brought in Vadar, we brought in Munis, we went through everything. At the end of the day, we went back to our current vendor, and they made changes based on the fact that we were going to leave. And now it's working so well, I can't begin to describe it. So sometimes you have to light a fire under their, are we being recorded? You know what I'm talking about. And then we can make a change. But I got to tell you, if just looking at the accounting reports that we've been receiving from SoftWrite, I can't make heads or tails out of them. I don't understand where the revenues are coming from. There's stuff that shows up on the forms that it doesn't make any sense to me. And I agree with Mary. We need to change all that and make it better. Go, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple of things. Irene brings up a good point. Other side of, what is it? Other side always looks green. So definitely talk to customers, current customers, but also I will tell you, if you talk to any customer of any software company, having worked in that industry for many, many years, there are always tickets that are going to be open for over a year, right? Because customers submit things, they sometimes don't even remember what they have submitted, unless it's something mission critical that they're not reacting to. I would again caution you, take anything that this company that's on Foxborough is telling you they can do with a grain of salt. So.
Thank you, Gopal. Anything else on Mary's budget? I know we talked a lot about the software, but I think that's very important. The one question that wasn't answered that I know Barry asked before, what is our total annual cost for the SoftWrite software? Does anybody know?
I seen one invoice and it was $33,000, but I don't think that's the total cost, because then then I seen an invoice or Amy said, oh, well, we pay Acela too. So I think we're paying SoftWrite and Acela. So I have to go back and now I gotta, look into that.
So eventually we'll figure out what we're spending.
Yeah, if I could jump in.
Go ahead,
I
please,
think,
go ahead.
I
Ed.
think that what we'll do is we're gonna, this is on our list of things to tackle. We just haven't
Right.
done it yet. It's been a month together here working.
I don't know what the heck you're doing with all your time, Evan. I really don't.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just super lazy these days, I guess. So, I think that we probably within a week or so, we can have that number to you and we'll just push that out in an email so that the next time we meet, everyone's aware of what that cost was.
Perfect. Barry,
Okay.
thank you, Evan. Barry?
And I found a new use for my time. I found 2 payments to Acela that add up to about $29,000, $30,000. I can't find any for SoftWrite. But I think the solution is for them to get off Foxborough and go to COBOL. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mary on the budget, on the town accountant's budget? Does the finance committee want to, right now, before we move off accounting and go on to everything that Evan has to cover with us, does the finance committee want to take a position on the assistant town accountant's position? Is there any interest in endorsing that spot, that position? Anyone? Bueller? Mayor, Sue Robbins?
Yes, I would really like to endorse getting an assistant accountant. That department has been really neglected for over a year. And it really Mary needs assistant to get it all straightened out. And I am fully supporting that.
Barry?
If we're going to get a real certified accountant, I think that's a great idea. That's expertise that you need. Rather than somebody who's going to grow into the position. Yeah, you'll have to train them some things and blah, blah, blah. But somebody who is a real accountant working someplace else wants to come over here to wonderful Grafton, that's a good idea.
Go Paul, then Irene.
Yeah, this is my first time in the finance committee, but $67 million in budget, and there are lots of questions that are still we are trying to figure out. I understand, Mary and Evan, that you are new, so don't take that as on you, but that just tells me that the department is so understaffed. And on top of it, add software issues. We just owe our citizens a lot more accountability for the money that they entrust with us. So I will endorse.
Thank you. Irene?
I'm just remembering that for at least the 3 years that I was on the finance committee, prior to this year, the previous town accountant, we had to bring consultants in to close the books every year. So that says to me that, we need more hands, and specifically, especially to Barry's point, qualified hands, make sure that we hire the right person. But it does sound like we could use some help in that department. So we were spending the money anyways. Let's have somebody that's going to be working for us, full time, and we can get a lot more value from that.
Thank you, Irene. So based on that, I'd entertain a motion from oh, Barry, did you want to say something first?
I'm sorry, I popped in there. First Arkansas Bank, what do we do with them? We have invoices or payments listed for them quite a bit.
What department?
155. Who's 155?
Oh, that's IT.
Yeah, okay. First Arkansas Bank and Trust. I'm just,
We'll have to get an answer on that.
that's weird.
We paying Bill Clinton? No?
Yeah.
Um,
And,
Sue, did
and
you-
again, we're not going to know all of this because I haven't been able to, drill down into all of these accounts and, see what we're spending and.
Yeah, I just get a big kick out of digging into these things and finding this stuff. I will now lower my hand.
Thank you. Sue Fiacco.
First Arkansas Bank and Trust is a credit card.
Oh, so that's the town credit card. So that's what we pay.
Okay.
Gotcha. So based on that, I would entertain a motion from the finance committee to endorse creating the position of assistant town accountant at the pleasure of the town administrator. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Irene. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Sue Robbins. Any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Irene,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Gopal,
Aye.
Andy,
Aye.
Mark, aye, unanimous. So Evan, if that helps, I hope it does. I think you made a very, very good case, you and Mary, this morning on that. So anything we can do to help you, that's what we're here for. Any other
everyone.
questions for the town accountant's budget? So Evan has been here for 3 weeks and he has a million positions, a million budgets that he's responsible for, from the select board to the town administrator, to human resources, to copies, to municipal, to unclassified, fuel, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go through each and every one of them individually unless the finance committee has a desire to do that. I don't think Evan's going to be able to answer all those questions because he just got here. So I think what would make sense, if it's okay with the finance committee and understanding the time and all the time we've been spending on the, go ahead, Sue. Did you want to say something?
I'm sorry, Mark. As a public meeting and a full review of departments, we might want to mention each one with a bottom line number, just for
Oh.
public use.
Oh, okay, we could do that. Gopal,
you.
did you want to say something before I finish my thought?
I would like to understand what are the questions that currently cannot be answered, just so that we are aware of where the gaps are.
Okay, so if we want to go through each budget, we can just bring it up, and then if Evan wants to talk about it, we can talk about it. I think most of these budgets were level funded going into next year. The one budget that I do want to spend a little bit of time on, and that's the human resources budget, because that was going to be a question that I had, because I'm very confused over the human resource function that's going on in town right now. Who's doing what and why? Because I remember last year, that was a big debate in the budget as to whether or not we wanted to increase it to full time. And then as soon as we did, the person left. So I'd like to get an update from Evan on exactly where we are. So following along the lines of what Sue and Gopal said, why don't we just go down the list and we will start. I'm going to share my screen and we will go through. We'll start at the beginning and we will walk through the budgets that Evan is responsible for, starting with the select board. I think that's the first one, correct?
Town moderator.
Oh, town moderator.
Thank
Oh,
you.
geez.
Yep.
In charge of the
So-
moderator's budget too?
You are in charge of everything. So the moderator's budget is a total of $250. Any questions to Evan on why we are spending $250 on a vacant position? Nope. Okay. So then the next budget, and I'm sorry, I was just trying to organize the meeting. I didn't mean to rush through anything. I'm just trying to, I'll stop talking. So then the next budget is the select board budget. That total budget is wages, $38,125. And that includes the administrative assistant that's 25 hours a week. How's that position working, Evan? In your estimation?
So
'Cause
far,
it was
so
out
good.
of
I
the
mean,
budget before.
what's that?
It wasn't in the we just added that to the budget last year, I believe, or the year before last.
Okay. I think it's working out quite well. We're doing quite a bit of work together on selectmen's agendas. Excuse me, I'm used to Munson. Select board's agenda, and really drilling down on proper motions, proper packets. I think we're doing pretty well there, and that position also covers when the TA's admin is out of the office. So that we have somebody there to answer the phone and deal with the, help assist the residents.
Dan?
Does increasing from 19.5 hours to 25 hours add benefits?
It does add benefit eligibility. So this was something discussed and negotiated before I arrived. I believe that in its current form, that employee is not interested in those additional costs. Not to say that they couldn't be, but right now it seems like the increase is just that $8,000-ish that you see on its face.
Okay.
I was cognizant of that as well, but
I think the select board is overpaid. I think Why are we still paying stipends to the select board? I was kidding about being overpaid, but I'm asking the question. Why in these tight fiscal times are we still paying select board members stipends?
Let's cut it.
I would suggest you do, but I'm sure Colleen and everybody else is gonna not talk to me anymore, but that's my loss, but just a question. Barry, go ahead.
I'm amazed at how much time it appears that they put in. They meet just about every Tuesday and they have a stack of stuff to prepare in advance, assuming that they spend the time preparing in advance. This is short money that we're giving them. I could easily see paying them more, but that's me.
Wow, I didn't think that one comment would generate all these hands up. Sue Robbins?
I agree with Barry. The reason that they were given the stipends in the first place is that they were former selectmen, and this started a long time ago, were putting in a lot of hours and extra time, and they're doing so more now. So I have no problem giving them a stipend.
Okay, Irene and then Sue Fiacco?
Yeah, my feeling is, while we all do work hard, and right now we're working tons of hours, theirs is not only during certain times of the year. They meet at a minimum twice a month, every single month, no matter what. And oftentimes, especially right with things we're going through right now, they're meeting more often. Their meetings tend to be much longer. And there's a lot more responsibility. I have no problem with the stipend. I would not advocate for an increase, but I certainly understand why that position, almost but not quite uniquely, I think there's one or two others that get stipends, but I certainly understand why that position gets it.
Does the school committee get a stipend?
No.
All right, so I think the school committee works just as hard as the select board. Why aren't we giving the school committee a stipend? Sue Fiacco?
I wanted to let you know that that was a raise from 500 to 1,000 in recent years. I can't tell you what year, but recent.
I'll tell you, I appreciate the select board and all the work that they do. They're excellent. They're hardworking. They do a great job, but I know I cut it out of my budget a few years ago during tight financial times, and the select board is still working as hard, and they meet every week as well. I don't see the need to pay elected officials that salary, but that's just my opinion. Irene?
Just quickly, I meant to put my hand down, and I will as soon as I say this. I actually tend to agree that the school committee certainly would also be equally deserving. And I was curious, I was surprised to realize that, they didn't, but that's it.
Thank you. Any other questions on the select board's stipend? It's so funny what generates debate. Oh, Dan and then Andy. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I just feel like we should pick a lane. I feel like $1,000 is, we're like, oh, we should pay them something, but not something that's actually worth what they're providing. Like, it's either we should expect them to do it for free, or we should pay them for the value of the work they're doing. I feel like $1,000 is just kind of, it's nothing compared to the amount of work they're doing. And so I guess, well, taking a step back, I feel like if you're going to pay them, the point is to make it accessible for people who can't give up that time, people who are, in a lower income bracket, who are, they can't give up that kind of free time to do this work. If you're going to do that, $1,000 isn't going to make any difference at all. It's just giving $1,000 to the same people who can afford to give up that time and would anyway, and then you're just giving them $1,000 for it. So I feel like we should do one or the other. $1,000 to me is just kind of not serving any purpose.
Understood. Andy?
Yeah, I think I'm similarly on the fence with this. It doesn't seem like nearly enough carrot for the amount of crop that they receive, but at the same time, I see your point that it's tough to, volunteer an increase for them when we're so tight on budget elsewhere. So I was going to suggest, that trusty fallback of what are our sister communities doing in terms of select board rates and whatnot, or school committee at that rate, just to see what similar compensations are going on.
Andy's
Irene?
catching on quick.
Oh, sorry. Irene, he is.
I was
Irene?
going to, exactly what Andy just said. Let's survey the comparable communities and find out, what, if anything, is going on there. I like that. That was going to be my suggestion.
Before I go to Gopal, just to clarify my point on the $1,000, it's obviously not going to balance the budget. It's more symbolic than anything else. And that's the only reason I brought it up. Gopal?
I did not hear that means we are looking to increase from the $5,000.
No, there wasn't. Any questions on select board expenses? All right, so moving on to the next budget is the town administrator. Are there any questions? Obviously, we've set the salary. The select board hired Evan. That's the salary that they negotiated, so that's in there. Administrative personnel is the assistant. So I guess my question is $70,564 for that position. A few years ago, Evan, when we lost the 25-hour-a-week position, I think Heather and Sue will remember this. And maybe Dan was on the finance committee, and Barry definitely was. They took the money from that 25-hour-week position and they bumped up the salary of this position and they bumped up the salary of the assistant town administrator to make up for the extra work that they took on. And then we put the 25-hour-a-week position back in the budget, but I didn't see a corresponding reduction of the salary based on the amount of work that was handed over to that position that is now with the 25-hour-a-week. So I guess my question is, at $70,000, that's a pretty decent salary for that position. Have we looked at that? And is that something that needs to be examined? Dan Kusha?
Yeah, I just feel like we already were seeing a difference in the way that things are being presented to us. And I feel a lot more comfortable with, the discussion we had earlier about the assistant, the assistant Mary was talking about. I forgot the exact title, but yeah, I feel like around this, it felt like we were getting this just weird math thrown at us about, cutting one person, increasing hours for other people who are paid at a higher rate, but saving money somehow and still getting all the work done. It never added up for me. So yeah, I think kind of just stepping back from what we currently have and taking kind of from like starting from scratch kind of look at it, I think would be very beneficial.
Appreciate that. Any other comments on that? Management analyst, that was the position that was created when we created the finance director position. And I know William's here with us today and I hear he's doing a great job. So any questions on that, Gopal?
No, I had a question on the administrative personnel. Is that one assistant? That's $70,000?
Yes.
That's market rate?
Well, that's why I asked the question.
So let me address that in maybe the more political way. So we did just, and I've talked about this already, we did just receive grant funds to do a salary and classification study. That position will certainly be part of that, and then we will assess it at that time. I've really been, I think low on the priority list is assessing every single thing that the former administration did, and why, and some of the history. I understand that that's important. I think what we're trying to do is get this budget past past the goal line, which I realize is not maybe a politically savvy answer, but there's just not enough time to go out and look at every single position and then try to argue back from what may have happened in the past. So I'm really banking a lot on that salary and classification study, helping to uncover those areas where we're either overpaying or underpaying, and then come up with a strategy to correct those issues.
Evan,
I just wanted to go ahead.
Evan, do you have a point in terms of how much you paid in Munson, just to kind of get an idea if this is in the ballpark? 5,000 here and there doesn't matter, but if it's $20,000 off.
So So one thing I will tell you is that comparing Munson to Grafton is not a great comparison. You have triple the budget that we had in Munson. I didn't have a admin assistant in Munson. The select board did. That also half ran the cemetery commission. So to try to put, compare those things is probably not going to yield the result we want. I think that, again, and I don't want this to sound like passing the buck, but one of the reasons I'm so keen on this salary and classification study is they're going to go find 10 sister communities that are of similar population, socioeconomic background, and overall budget, and then help utilize those salaries to determine where we should be. And I really put a lot of faith in that process.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring it up, that 70,000 jumped out at me, and we were just talking about an assistant town accountant that requires certain educational background and experience, and we're talking 55 to 65 for that. And then I see this, and that's the only reason I brought it up, Evan. Barry?
I'm concerned. We're talking about adding back an assistant town administrator or assistant
No, not at all.
to the town
The
administrator.
lines aren't lined up there. That's the issue.
Okay, so
See this 61 and see the 61 and the 69? This
Yep.
should actually be up here on the administrative
Okay.
personnel.
All right. never
57, this
mind.
is a
I thought-
brand new
Oh.
position.
Okay,
This is
okay.
William.
I thought it was 70,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, the line
Sorry.
doesn't work. It went from, and the point I was making is it went from 61 in fiscal 20 to 69 in fiscal 21 because of the added responsibility, because they got rid of a position, and then they brought that position back, and the salary stayed up at the 70,000 number. That's why I brought it up. It went from 61 to 69 to 70, and then we brought in another 25-hour week position last year. So the question is do we need to look at that? And I just wanted to make
Wait.
Evan aware of it. That's
I'm
all.
confused because are you saying that 91,000 and 92,000 is?
That was the assistant town administrator, which is now the management analyst. So it went from 92 to 57.
Okay. So the
That's-
administrative,
These columns don't line up, Gopal.
okay. But the administrative personnel is still 70,000.
That's correct.
Okay.
Barry?
who is the administrative personnel now?
That
Cindy.
would be, yes, that would be Cindy in my office.
Okay, so
And
then-
she's been a town employee for, umpteen years. So I think that might have to correlate to her high salary.
But no, Mary, because
No?
it went from 61 to 70 in 1 year because
Oh.
it took on added responsibility, because we eliminated a position. The 61 is the
Oh,
years of
I see.
service,
So they just, okay.
correct.
So
Barry,
we
I'm
will,
sorry.
no, sorry,
No,
Barry.
go ahead, Evan.
We'll dig into it more. I don't think either Mary or I have an answer for you. Again, that's history that we don't have, which I'm now getting. But also, I think we need to do some outside comparison here.
Understood. Barry?
okay, so I'm not gonna touch the administrative personnel, 5113, leave that aside. I'm looking at the 5120. I know the select board and Evan and you guys have brought in William, this is great. I see tremendous value in the area of being a public engagement officer because I find it hard to find things, and I'm experienced in using it on the town website at times. Stuff is there, or it's not there, or it's out of date, or it's not clear as to where do I go to find stuff. So that task strikes me as being really important to have a nice, clean, maybe used to do this, usability testing, where you bring people in and say, I want you to find these 3 things, go. And then step back and see if they can actually do it. The second thing is the management analysis. Wow, that strikes me as being a really important task. To analyze, compare us with similarly sized towns to determine whether we need 6 of these or 4 of these or whatever. And then just what does it cost for us to do various services? These are really things that a management analyst can do. And I read that job description. That's a heck of a job description. Those two things I think are magnificent, great, and I really do hope that we can execute on that full time.
Thank you, Barry. Go ahead, go Paul.
Yeah, I just did some quick Google searches and just to get a ball figure, everything I'm seeing for the administrative assistant is around 45,000. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm just saying it might be worth looking at.
Anything else on this? You know, I said at the beginning, do we have any questions? And I've asked the most questions. I'm sorry. So that's the town administrator's budget. Any questions on the wage line of 288? All right. Any questions on the line item for expenses? I assume, Mary, that the professional and technical line is what we use to pay the consultant to cover the accountant's office. Is that where it came from?
No, that came out of my line item.
Oh, it came out of yours. Oh,
Oh, never mind.
then I'm confused. That's all right. Barry, did you have a question?
A brief one on the GFOA. Do you find the GFOA to be of value to what you're trying to do?
No,
Okay.
if you mean like, you mean beyond just the other services, but like this is a GFOA kind of baseline budget document? Is that what you're referring to, or just in general?
No, the Government Finance Officers Association.
Right.
Some of the things that they do, I've found of value, some are not.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm being a little tongue in cheek. So in general, there is some value. This budget is clearly designed to try to meet the GFOA, award-winning platform. And personally, I find it to be horrible. I've got my stack of papers here. I've been doing this for 7 years. I don't know where half this stuff is. The things that should be transparent aren't transparent. The things that shouldn't be transparent have, 40 different lines to them to explain minutia that nobody cares about. I should be able to take this budget. I've been here for day one. I should be able to look at that 5,300 line and say, oh, that's where that $45,000 go. And you can't, right? So then you got to go pull all this detail and try to figure this out. And it's just, I hate it. I hate every part of it.
So I'm going to assume before I go to Sue and Irene that you're going to probably have a different budget format for fiscal 23.
Yeah.
Is that a safe assumption, Evan?
Yes.
You're
Absolutely.
going to win it? Do you think you'll still win an award? I'm joking.
if the-
Don't answer. I'm joking. I was making a joke, Evan. Don't answer that.
Okay.
Sue Robbins.
I liked your joke, Mark.
Thank you, Sue.
I've never, in all the years that the past 12 years, did I ever get a clear understanding of what professional and technical was. Every year I got a different answer. One year I asked for an itemized line of what it was all going to be spent on. And I got that, but none of it was spent on that. So when you do professional technical, I would like to have a real clear understanding where all this money is going, because to me, it always looked like it was just a slush fund to use for whatever and not anything specific. That's
Irene. Thank you. Thank you, Stu. I agree with you. Irene?
I was wishing we had in one of these, there's a thing where you can do a hand clap. So when Evan was expressing his disdain for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, I just wanted to hand clap his comments. Agreed.
I'm right with you, Irene, 100%. Any other questions on the town administrator? All right, the next budget that we need to jump up to is the finance committee. That's our budget. Well, that's our budget. Never mind.
I cut that one. Don't worry about it.
No, I appreciate that. Evan, what are you going to do? Are you going to cut the reserve fund back to 75? Or we'll get to that when you give us your update, right?
Yeah, I already did. So.
Okay. Oh, no, enough said. So move on.
I was only quasi kidding when I said I cut your budget.
So the next budget is human resources.
I think Barry has a question too.
Go. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I was flipping ahead. Go ahead, Barry.
Okay, there's always one in the crowd. I have actually read that budget book, all 500 something pages of it. And what I found was a lot of the issues and conflicts and all that came up were actually documented and explained or discussed in the narrative in that budget book. Some of the tables and the accuracy of what's in this and what's in that, that's a separate issue for me. But when it came to, gee, are we trying to be aware of what's coming down the pike? Are their costs going to raise or not? That was all spelled out in the narrative in that budget book. And then, of course, the last 200 something pages, you get the magnificence of the school budget, which is bloody detailed, but really well presented. Anyway, so I guess I missed my green book. There you go.
Go ahead. The next budget is, oh, go ahead, Heather.
I will say, I mean, Sue can contest to this. The past budgets have been a nightmare. This is actually what we have now. Unfortunately, a lot of the descriptions are wrong because they weren't updated. But I will say, and Sue can, I think she'll back me up by saying what we've had maybe 3 years ago is when this started. Prior to that, it was an absolute nightmare. You could not follow anything. But I will agree with her that the unfortunate piece about this budget, although it's pretty and you can see everything, it all lived in Tim and Becca's head. So there was no backup. That's what we're missing, is the backup. I have no problem with this format because it's nice and you can follow it, but there's no backup. And I think that's what we're missing. And maybe it's just me, but I'm used to, here's your general ledger, here are your sub ledgers, everything, flows up. And this doesn't do that because it all lived in Becca and Heather and Tim's head.
Right. And so it's a pretty format and I think you can follow it, but if you don't put the level of detail in that's necessary, then it's kind of all for naught.
And I agree, but I think what they're missing this year is, and maybe because none of the descriptions have been written. I mean, they're all wrong. Like half of them are wrong, just like we've all been saying, like that makes no sense. That's not even right. So I think that's what this particular budget is missing. I'm not saying it's perfect because I know, when we first got here, Sue, when I first got here 11 years ago, everything was level funded. It didn't matter because they were afraid to take anything out of the budget because they were afraid they would never get it back.
Right.
So at least they moved a little bit forward with that. But I agree that this year, a lot of stuff seems to just keep it the same. But then they kept everything else the same and they didn't explain why they did it. And so it is frustrating. And I know that next year it's going to take a while. You guys are going to have to go line by line and it's going to be difficult, but I think it's also going to be difficult because I think a lot of this stuff it's sitting in Tim and Becca's head. And so I apologize because you guys are going to have to look in a lot of different places to find this stuff, but it's almost better because you are building it from the bottom up. And I think it'll be a much more beneficial and much more meaningful budget. So that's just my 2 cents.
Perfect. I agree with you. 100%. Heather. Sue Robin. Sue, you muted.
Heather and I have kind of been pushing for zero-based budgeting for a long time. And so there's some departments that I think would be beneficial for them to do it, but I don't think that some department heads know how to do that.
Right.
And so I think that it might be something to consider and something to do some training in and how to do zero-based budgeting. So that if there needs to be some significant changes, we can do that.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that I was asked during my hiring process, is what I thought of zero base and if I had any experience with it. I don't have any practical experience with it because governments hate zero-based budgeting. Quite frankly, no government official likes zero-base because of the kind of general mentality that municipal government has for the most part. But I think it's a valuable tool. And so between that and kind of these newer capital processes, I think we'll probably do more of that.
Andy Jefferson.
Man, being junior, I really appreciate some of the past frustrations that the longstanding FinCom members have gone through. And sitting in on this first round of budget reviews has been so enlightening. Man, I would really challenge, townspeople to go back and watch these meetings and stuff, because it's been great. But I wanted to echo that sentiment that even in just my short time and experience, I am deeply grateful for the level of interaction that both Evan and Mary have brought to attending different departmental meetings, different committee meetings, and the level of transparency that we're getting here, and just engagement, and the fact that there do seem to be a lot of errors in these documents, and that somebody is finally going back and doing like a ground up fix of a lot of these issues. Just expressing some deep admiration and appreciation there.
Sue Fiacco, then Angelina.
Thank you, Mark. It is a question that kind of bounces back to the town accountant when Mary had mentioned her P&T versus the town administrator's P&T. As you all know, we had, I think, a sliding scale for the use of the P&T and town accountant to close the books, or for with the consulting transitioning with our former town accountant to make basically the learning curve issue. That was 15.9 and now it's down to 15. Is that still in there, the closing of the books, and was any of the P&T from the town administrator's office used to offset that in the past? I thought it was a larger number.
It was down to 3,800 last year, so.
Okay,
So it was significantly reduced year over year, so.
yes, it was a sliding scale.
It's very, yeah, it's down. Angelina, did you have a question?
No, I just think this whole discussion is really support for hiring an assistant accountant for the town, because that's what happens when you decentralize the accounting function and have it going through other offices. When you put it all back together, then that office is going to be responsible for training people on how to do their budget, and even like doing a forecast for where they think they're going to end up. And the money management will be infinitely more productive, and it will just make an enormous difference, I think.
So that's an excellent point. Heather, did you have a follow-up?
No, is my hand still raised? Sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
that's
lower
okay.
it.
That's
No,
okay.
sorry. I had Barry's
Thanks.
problem. I wasn't lowering. Sorry.
I just want to make sure I recognize everybody. So legal, professional legal budget is 135,000. It's up this year. Evan, did Carter give you a rationale as to why we bumped it up this year so much? Is it based on the fact that we spent 120 last year?
I believe that's why. We didn't have that conversation, but that's what it looks like.
Okay. And any questions on legal, Barry?
Yeah, I'm digging through my fund stuff here, the revenue and expense report, and I see payments to law firms seem to be in many places, which would add up to a whole lot more than 110 or 135 or whatever we're paying. Do we slide payments to law firms into other accounts, or is it all rolled? Are we trying to roll it all up to 151?
Excellent question.
So the short answer is going to be, I don't know yet. The longer answer is, as far as it being spread out, Grafton does appear to like to use special counsel for different matters. So that's you'll see firms that aren't really normally in that list of the big, we'll call them the big five or whatever, the five normal ones that the town's been using. And so we have to do some digging. Mary and I have had a cursory conversation about the legal budget and some of the outside expenses and where those track back to. Some of that's probably situational depending on what issue they were dealing with at whatever time, which is historical knowledge that just neither of us have yet. But what we had done, we went through a quasi similar situation before, and we were able to clean that up and track, or not track, ensure that we're placing everything underneath the legal expenditure line, even if it was, you know, a temporary line we created in Conservation Commission or whatever we were doing at the time.
Yep. Okay.
Makes sense. Irene?
Barry, I was just going to add that I do know that the school department legal is separated out and has to be, because that has to get reported to DESI. So anytime the legal expense is specific to the school, that will be its own. And I believe they typically use a different firm.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm sure cable TV has a lawyer who gets involved in negotiation with Verizon and Charter. So yeah, I'm just curious. It looks like a lot of money on lawyers.
Sure does. So any other questions on legal? Sue Robbins?
Not a question, just a comment that Irene is correct. The school department has their own legal counsels, and it is a different firm for different
Yep.
reasons.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to the next budget, human resources. So Evan, you know, last year you could see that it was 36,350 in FY20. We bumped it up to make it full time. What's your intention with this position, and how do you see it moving forward? If you had a chance to give it any thought?
So yeah, so I have done two things. One, I've thought about it and I've screwed it up a little bit, and I've also hired somebody, kind of in that order. So here's where we're at. Superintendent Cummings and I had a cursory conversation about the potential to consolidate human resource, payroll, and benefits administration into one consolidated department, which I'm very keen on pursuing. Then I misunderstood that I believed that the school department already had a payroll benefits person. So that mistake will factor into what I'm going to say next. So then when I had arrived, Carter had already advertised for the HR analyst position on the school side of the house. So I interviewed those people and hired somebody to fill this position at the full-time rate, because quite frankly, we need it. And so then I got a email from Superintendent Cummings saying, so do I have to hire my own now? Because I thought we were going to talk about this. You know, obviously my mistake there. We have since had conversation. We are going to all sit down together. I don't think my filling of that position is going to, you know, tank the ability of us to look at a shared or consolidated department. I think if anything, it gives a little bit of stability for us to be able to have somebody doing the work that we need to be done, but then also figure out what the plan is for the future. So I guess long story short, we filled the position at its full-time current status. We will then be having conversations with the school department to see if we can parlay that into a consolidated department.
Thank you, Evan. Barry?
Yeah, my experience is that HR has two really distinctive functions. One is benefits, payroll, etc., dollars and cents. The other is the interpersonal issues, the onboarding, training, how to be nice to everybody issues. Are we touching on any of that second kind of position?
Yeah, so currently what we're trying to spool up here is, you know, the big things for us are payroll administration, benefits administration, and then the onboarding process. That would be the big three that need to be housed kind of in this department. The real HR heavy lifting, you know, the employee discipline, all that stuff is generally, in my opinion, still falls to the TA in some way, shape, or form, even if you've got somebody kind of, you know, playing stopgap. So, you know, I think if we're looking at a consolidated measure, what we're really talking about is consolidating payroll, consolidating benefits administration, consolidating the onboarding process, and then coming up with, you know, the secondary system for dealing with, you know, problem employees or, you know, all of the rest of that.
Okay.
Any other questions on human resources?
And of course, this is Grafton, so there are no problem employees, just
No,
stars.
everybody's
I
wonderful.
was also going to tell you, Barry, we don't have to worry about training people how to be nice to customers because we're in the government. So we don't do that here. No, I'm kidding. That's a big part of what we do.
So can I ask a question? Sue, you don't have the MIS GIS on our list. Is that something that Evan covers or is that another? Because I don't remember covering this with anybody.
We should have covered a little bit of it with with Mary Oliver. She handles the.
Oh, it's hers. Okay, sorry.
Yes, sorry, yep, and GIS was covered under engineer.
Gotcha. Any questions on MIS? Evan, for $145,000 for the services and everything else, does it make sense to bring in your own IT director and have them on board so that you're not using a consultant?
Yes, possibly. We're in communication. I'd like to see that wind up being a consolidated service for the school department as well, if we can.
Excellent. It might save a little bit of money or even if you spend more money, you'd have a better service. I would think.
Absolutely. That for me, it's the money is almost secondary to the service.
Yep. Go Paul, then Barry.
So this 145,000 is for 45,000 is for a consultant.
Yeah, so that's our IT vendor in essence. That's the people that actually come on site and do our server work and get all our computers set up and all of that stuff.
I'm not sure if 45,000 would get you a full-time IT.
Well, that's why he said, but go Paul, that's why he said he's talking to the schools about consolidating it and sharing services. So you probably have to pay an IT director the $110,000 to $120,000 range, obviously. So by working with the schools, I like how Evan said that there is a potential for sharing that service with the schools and getting a better service. And even if we have to spend a little bit more money, I think it makes sense. Barry?
Okay. Yeah, no, I have one more question.
Go ahead, go Paul. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Office 365 fee for all users, $5,500. How many users do we have?
No idea.
Okay, because
I haven't gotten that far yet.
The reason I'm asking is,
yes,
and this has happened in multiple companies I'm working for, everybody is taking a hard look as how many people need access to the whole Microsoft Office, right. And if not, can Google be cheaper? That is something that we may want to consider.
Yeah, so my experiences has been that Office 365 wound up costing us a little more per user per month. And we're talking like a couple of bucks.
Okay.
And people generally hated the Google platform. I had people, people have been using Office forever. Yeah. And so there's some integration issues there. So we are going to take a hard look at that. I honestly don't know how many users that incorporates because I still have people on Windows 7 platform that seem to be running, Office 2010. We have kind of a hodgepodge that I'm uncovering, and that will what I'd like to do, and not to derail this conversation farther. I'm a big fan of the Evergreen plan, and so we create an Evergreen plan that talks about how many units we're gonna renew every year. So and then also what we're gonna spend on those basic software. So we don't really seem to have an IT plan that talks about, we're going to try to refresh every computer every 5 years or 8 years, that's whatever good. Number you pick.
Yeah, $1 to $2, it's not worth conversation, but I think you have other places where you could get efficiencies of scale by not having that many different operating systems and so on. So
yeah. I agree.
Any other questions on MIS, Barry?
Yeah, we know that Windows 7 is no longer supported by Microsoft and thus is a major vector for people who want to have fun with your systems. Mm-hmm. My question is about OpenGov. That was suggested some time ago. It was played with some time ago. It looks like a nice thing for town folk to look at and say, oh, that's the size of the budget and that's where my money is going. Have we considered touching that at all?
Yeah, so I did play around with it a little bit, and I'm familiar with OpenGov. In Munson, we used a product called ClearGov.
Yep, same one.
And we had done that because it's similar, but there's also a background component to it, which is budget building. Mm-hmm. So Munson's budget lives entirely in ClearGov. Okay. Every line is adjustable. You can add a note. You can upload your supporting documentation for that. So it's very similar, except for that background budgeting process. But Mary and I were both fans of that, and maybe we'll talk about that in the future.
Okay.
And as far as us paying for ClearGov, we're gonna either stop paying for it or get what we pay for, because it looks like it's been stagnant. So one of those two things will happen. And
Yeah.
I love the transparency. I think it's fantastic.
Transparency is important. Go, Paul.
Even if you couldn't tell, I have lots of opinions on software.
No.
You may want to use an opportunity when you're thinking about every software vendor. There's no harm in asking if they would waive the fees for 1 year because of COVID. The worst is they're going to say no, right?
Yep.
But don't forget to ask the question. Even if we get 25% off, that is savings, because everybody is helping out everybody else, especially towns and stuff. So
Thank you.
Anything else on this? Go, Paul, going once, going twice. Copiers, any questions on copiers? Total budget of 28,800, Evan?
That, no, I think I actually added one since then, I think.
You added
Since
another
this budget.
copier?
I did for the senior center.
And how much did that add to this line? We'll get to that when you give us your budget update, right?
It's the $200 a month or something. It was like $1,800, I think. Which is not $200 a month, I realized, but I thought of it after.
Gotcha.
It was minor, and I consider it to be low hanging fruit. It seems to be something that they've been asking for a long time, and there's really no reason not to do it.
All right. I'm speeding ahead to the next one, which is municipal. Budget 193.
Oh, town clerk, did we do that? We did
We
that.
did that last Saturday.
Never mind.
Okay, so municipal. I thought we covered this with Bob.
I think you did.
Okay.
It's
we don't need
important to note, and we can get to that with the budget updates, but I did add $5,000 to that line.
Okay, we'll talk about that when we get there.
Yep.
The infamous, Evan, I'm sure you love this line item, unclassified.
Yeah.
So in there, I guess we have retirement, health insurance, everything else under the sun. So the pension budget, everybody saw a substantial increase into this budget. We're beholden to the Worcester County retirement system. I know in my town, my budget went up $300,000. It killed me. You've seen a similar increase here. Hopefully it'll level off next year.
Let's hope.
What I'm concerned about, though, is that you're adding some group 4 full-time employees that we've never had before within the fire department.
Yes.
Have we done an analysis or talked to Worcester County on what the impact of those new group 4 employees will be? And for those of you who don't know, group 4, those are the fire and police officers. They're classified, and light department workers and things like that. They're classified as group 4. They get a higher retirement benefit. They get to retire earlier than everybody else gets to retire. Us poor group 1 employees.
It's my understanding that was done and implemented with the 3 full-time hires that Carter had begun the process on.
So that's in this number?
That's my understanding from.
Okay, good.
From what I was told.
Okay, good.
There's also, and I allude to this, there is, and Mary will have to just jump in here, maybe Mayor, with the lines, but in unclassified, we do have 2 oh no, sorry, they're gonna be on the next page, I think. Nope, sorry, stop. I got it. I know where I'm at now. 5174 and 5175 are kind of placeholders that Carter had added into the budget for contract negotiation, as well as just a place to have a little bit of cushion should we need to pull money. So that's a total of $360,000. We're currently doing our calculations. I don't think we're going to be close to 360. I think we're probably well under that, and that's potentially where our assistant accountant lives.
So does that mean you're going to give us our $75,000 back in the reserve fund?
Oh, absolutely not. That's already gone. It's already gone.
Yeah, I understand. On the, I have a question, Evan, on the group health insurance.
Sure.
It says here, hope to be able to hold it to a 3%. Have you got the final rates?
Mary, do we have our final rates, or are we still,
They did confirm it is 3%.
is 3%, correct?
Yeah,
You don't have to
we're
touch that
waiting
line
for
item.
the paperwork for all the rates.
Okay.
It
I
is
know I
3%.
hadn't seen any paperwork, but we did have a conversation at 3%. Okay.
That's
good.
awesome.
Thank you.
Moving on, any other questions on unclassified? I have one. How come we don't put the audit in the town accountant's budget?
No idea.
'Cause isn't the
Again, this will
auditor-
be, yeah, this will be something we'll probably.
In
look at.
Munson, we had an auditing department because I don't even know where the OPEB is, where that lives. So it really should be, one department auditing, auditing and OPEB audit.
Okay. Any other questions on unclassified? Go ahead, Andy.
A quick question on the 5410, the town report. Is there a number why we produce, a reason why we produce 700 of those, or I don't know. I didn't know if there was like a minimum that we had to post at certain locations.
No,
Just the
unless
number
it,
of people that usually like to get them. I'm sorry. Evan, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, and I'm sorry, Andy, I kind of cut you off too. Unless it lives somewhere in a policy or something that I haven't found yet, there's no statutory obligation for how many you have to produce. In fact, in my previous employment, we didn't produce any at all. It was all PDF and online. And so, I figured we'd go through this particular process and see how many people. I mean, I know they have an idea of how many people, but really take a hard look on whether or not, we really need to be producing 700 town reports, and maybe reduce that, or I'm always hesitant to move it all online because I think that some of your senior population doesn't have access in the same way, and I want to make sure that they do. However, what we would do is, if somebody came looking for it, we would just print a copy. It didn't have to be this big fancy, laminated, not laminated, nice shiny covered book.
You don't want to win the annual town report contest?
That's not my jam. I really, I just
I'm
want
being
to
a wise
save.
guy. Evan, I'm being a wise guy.
I just want to save people money and give them access to the information they have. That's really.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Evan 100%. It's not a requirement. It's just the preference. You'll find that there are a lot of people that look forward to getting that printed book each year. And it'll just be a judgment call on your part moving forward. I like the idea of going online. Go ahead, Barry.
I have room in my bookcase right over there. Or the town.
Absolutely. I actually, Barry, I was going to comment. Most people have a Zoom background to look like they're in a library, and Barry's got the real thing behind.
He does.
It wraps
Awesome.
around 3 sides. The historical commission goes to conferences. Do they bring that information back?
I don't know, Barry. I would assume so. I had a real good relationship with the one in Munson. We'll figure that out.
Town insurance, have we got the final numbers from Maya?
No,
I
we're
don't
meeting
know.
with Maya, I believe, the first week of April.
I'm gonna guess that Carter had some sort of estimate to jump it up from 644 to 700,000, but you'll get your final numbers in April, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we'll tweak.
Yep, makes sense. Any other questions on classified? Okay, moving down to fuel and gasoline.
Barry has
Go
it.
ahead, Barry.
Barry's back.
Sorry, you jumped in after I started moving.
Historical. I learned how to program at Chubb Insurance.
Okay.
So my code might be, oh boy, that's problematic.
Hey, Sue Fiacco, is there a way to remove the hand raising function from Barry?
Mark, I warned you.
You did go, Paul, you did. Fuel, gasoline, it looks like you're pretty much level funding it. Any questions, issues with that? All right. Moving on to the next one is the sailor of weights and measures. I'll get there eventually. There we are. So it looks like we have bumped this up just a bit. And the reason Just think a normal increase for the sealer. I don't see any issues there. Any questions on the sealer weights and measures? All right, moving on to the next one is emergency management. Did we have a vacancy in there? Have we filled out that stipend position, Evan?
You know, I thought that was, is that not Ray Mead?
That was, I thought he retired from that.
He retired.
Oh, then I don't know. I will, I will. Yeesh,
Evan, I
I
have
will-
to tell you that, you know, you've been here for a month. Don't you have all the answers? Come on, what are you doing?
I'm working on it.
What-
I'm
do
working on
we- Mark, do we have a 90-day probation period or something on top of that?
We'll find out. I'm gonna reach out to Peter Carlson and find out what the plan is there.
Absolutely.
So next is animal control. That's now we have a regional agreement, I believe. Sue
Yes.
Robbins, help me out. We have a
Yes, we
regional
do.
agreement for the animal control officer.
Yes.
I take it we're not changing that. Why is there a $3,800 increase? Is this the cost went up or our share of the cost went up?
I was waiting for Sue.
Oh, no, go ahead, Evan.
I don't know. I was waiting for Sue.
I don't know.
I got my fingers crossed on that one. It's my general understanding that that's an increase in the contractual obligation, but I have not had a meeting with any of those folks at the present time. It's
So
on
there
the- on the-
could be an increase in the formula. There could be an increase in the cost or whatever. So, all right,
I
so
know-
that is going up.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't foresee that being changed. I'm sure Carter did that for a reason. Not one of the top priorities in the budget to find.
Sue Robbins?
I would just like to ask next year when we get these animal control things and the alliance from the Board of Health, if we can have a report put into our budget so we know what they have done for the year and what has been reported. I mean, we see a line item, but we don't know what they've actually done because
Right.
it's all outside. So if we could get a report of some sort, it would be helpful.
I think that's a pretty common thing with animal control, that you need to ask for those breakdowns to make sure that you're getting the bang for your buck there.
Shouldn't it be included in the town report?
So I don't think, again, it's not statutorily obligated to be part of a town report, but I do agree that it should. Yes.
Should be, yep. Animal inspector, we seem to have level funded that. Any questions on the animal inspector?
Irene
All
has
right.
her hand up.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Irene.
That's
Thank you,
okay.
Evan.
I was actually going back to animal control.
Oh, I'm going back then.
Just as a quick comment, anecdotally, they do get an awful lot of found, cats and dogs.
Yep.
And again, that's just anecdotal from social media. People find the animal and the last thing they say is we've called animal control. And if it's your pet, call animal control to reclaim your pet. So again, just anecdotally, I do know that they're active. That's far from a report and I can't tell you how often, but I do see it.
Understood. Moving on, next is sanitation. So obviously, Evan, the select board has been
Yep.
working on this particular issue, contracts and everything else, and I see we bumped it up
Yes.
$250,000. Have we signed a new contract with EL Hobby?
We have not. I was actually supposed to have a meeting with them on Wednesday of this week at their Westboro facility, and one of the reps I was going to meet with fell ill, so we pushed it off till the upcoming week. And then I would think in pretty short order after that, we'll have an agreement forthcoming.
So this number's still fluid, but I'm sure he
But it's-
carried what he thought.
Yeah, I'd say it's fluid, but very close to where it's going to be, if not right on the money.
Okay.
I mean, it was pretty much wrapped up when I got here with maybe some just nuanced conversation as far as oversight goes and reporting back to the town as far as, the amount per ton and the tonnage and the contamination rate and all of that stuff. So I'm going to say that's probably pretty darn close.
Okay, go Paul and then Barry.
Evan, there was some discussion in our Facebook group related to composting.
Yes.
That could be an option for us to
Yes.
reduce some costs. What is the latest on that?
So again, I met with Doreen DeFazio, who's been working the contract. We did have some preliminary conversations about composting. I think that that's it's not something that's going to reduce the cost this year. I mean, to implement a program like that is time consuming, and
Yeah.
but there is some potential there. We also were talking about, we have some grant funds. I think I'd like to see the town do a reduce cost backyard composting program as well. You know, anything you can do to reduce the tonnage that you're putting through the system saves you money. It hasn't in recent years because of the, you know, the national sword in China and the cost of recycling going through the roof. So, you know, it's really hard to cull out how much you saved in your tonnage of not throwing your food wastes in there. But I would like to see it. It was very popular when I did it in Munson, and I think the residents really liked it.
Yeah, our only comment I would have is don't underestimate as to how much awareness and education that may be required.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like everything else, there is resistance to any change. So
we did the composting program here, and we did some education, but I guess, you know, a lot of people don't pay attention to it. So people were putting meat in their compost, and then we had like this spree of bear bear issues. I mean, just like ripping these things apart all over town. It was like,
Oh, God.
yeah, it was
That's
less. That was year one. Year two, we did it a little different, but yeah, bears everywhere.
Barry?
In the budget statement, there is reference to the town signed a new contract with Wheelbarrow.
Yeah, I changed it in the version I have to Wheelabrator.
Wheelabrator, okie dokie, thank you.
Yep.
All right, and then moving on, any other questions on sanitation? Barry, you have your hand still up?
Nope, wait a minute.
Moving on to the next budget is snow and ice. And I know we had a brief discussion about whether or not we wanted to start thinking about bumping that up, but I guess this wouldn't be the time to do it. I'd say the priority, Evan, is that assistant town accountant position. So
I
if
mean,
there's any money available.
Right, we'll see what we get to in the bottom line, but it's definitely something we're aware of. Whether or not we do it this fiscal year or not is a question.
All right, and then moving on to the next one is street lighting. We're going up, did the rates from National Grid go up? Is that why this went up $8,000?
No, I think it went up because we added lights.
Added street lights? Gotcha.
I believe that's the driving factor there.
Okay, so the rates are the same, but we had more street lights, which is always good. People like to be able
Yeah,
to see where they're going at
and
night.
some, yes, and some repair addition as well.
Oh, okay, so that's a new, okay, we went from 2,000 to 10,000. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense there. Then the next.
Angelina has a question before you go.
Oh, sorry, Angelina, go ahead.
Can you go back up to that? Do we have enough budgeted in that line? It looks like we spent more in 2020 than what we even have budgeted for next year.
It's my understanding that that was during the switch to LED, so that cost should not be that high again. Maybe.
So we switched the lights?
Do we know what we've spent so far this year?
I'm sure someone does. I don't top of mind. Mary
No,
and
I know you don't know off the top of your head.
We can certainly add that to the line or the list of things that we're gonna send back to the finance committee.
Oh, I have it. So far.
Oh, good. Mary has it.
Yep, we've expended 16,500.
And that's probably through the first two quarters, so you haven't got quarter three yet.
Right.
All right, so 8,000 a quarter, so yeah, it is less. So the LED lights that they switched to last year, probably, you might even be able to save a little bit here, Evan.
Probably, yeah. I think that the approach was going to be get through this fiscal year, take the actuals, and then, you know, again, add 10% or whatever, move it over.
Great question, Angelina. Sue Fiacco?
Thank you. That was exactly what I was, you all covered it. It was the LED transition.
Mhm.
If you remember, we took a great deal of funding from the street lighting to offset some of the budgets last year
That's a good point.
as a
Great
result of
point.
the LED program.
So we might be able to cut that back $15,000 at the rate
Yeah.
we're going right now.
I would think that it would be about 15.
Go, Paul. Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
Evan, are we looking at more extensive use of solar for the town buildings and so on?
So the municipal center has it. And the library will have it.
What about, no, library wouldn't have it.
It will have it.
That's what Beth told us that,
No, she said it won't have it in its initial occupancy, but then they were able to secure other funding and they're gonna do it after the fact.
okay,
That's and we have solar at the sewer facility as well. Those are the only ones I know top of mind. It's definitely something we look at.
schools might be something to look at. Because especially means, I don't know how it is for town buildings, means I can't keep the solar guys out of my yard because everybody wants to give it to me for free.
Right.
So,
I think, so most of that, in it's called the power purchase agreement for the most part. You're basically leasing your roof space to somebody else. You can do it that way. You can do it as an owned asset. The problem with that is that you then own the asset and the maintenance thereof.
I also know of companies like Ameresco, where a good friend of mine works.
Yep.
They will fund it, and it is over a 15 or 20-year program,
right,
where the town will recoup the cost.
Yeah.
But the town doesn't have to put the money up front.
Right. Yeah, I had done some work with Ameresco as well. I think that one of the areas that I think is lacking, but has some really great growth potential, is doing a power purchase agreement, but actually leasing your parking lot space so that you can actually build into the deal repaving of the surface, which is fantastic. It then covers your lot so you don't have as much snow removal and water issues. It goes straight into stormwater. Those are that's an area I really want to explore on a personal level. I think that's got some really great potential, even more so than roofs, because then, when the roof starts leaking and you have thousands of dollars of damage inside, it becomes a whole another chicken and egg conversation.
Yeah. So if you get that done by April, we will reconsider the performance.
I appreciate that. I'm on it. You'll see that one panel I get done in the municipal lot.
Irene, then Sufiaco.
I was just going to echo the last thing Evan said about the parking lots. When I was working in Maynard and I left, we were in the process of quoting that and going forward with it with a similar type program. And again, the benefit being that you've got the parking lot covered, which is, lovely, and creating lots of electricity.
Sufiaco?
Thank you. I believe that there has been some sort of a leasing program that the town has worked on in conjunction with Tufts for solar.
Oh, okay. Anything else on this?
Thank you, Sue.
Moving ahead to Together We Can, and every year I ask what the heck that is, and every year I don't know what it is. So Evan, if you have an answer for that after being here for a month, I'm going to congratulate you. But does anybody have any questions on that 30? Oh, look at all the hands jumping up. We'll go to Heather. We'll go to Heather first. Heather?
Only because I worked with them last year. They help with the Bon Voyage party for the seniors.
Oh, okay.
It's
Great.
the party for the seniors, and
That's
all
important.
the money flows through them, and then they write the checks out. So they're sort of, I think, they're kind of like the conduit that spends all the money on the seniors. And they also do I think they also probably fund some other activities for the seniors, like the drunk driving and all that. But I know definitely Together We Can, because I worked with them last year.
All right, perfect.
It's definitely for the graduation.
That's the first time in 4 years I've heard that answer, so thank you. Before I go to Sue Robbins, Greg Marr, who's watching, put out a note here that says, I believe that the schools have all the solar that they are able to support on their roofs and from National Grid. So that's good information. Thank you, Greg, for telling us that. Sue Robbins.
That was just what I was going to say that Greg had mentioned about solar.
Excellent. Heather, did you have another point? I was like doing that to Heather. Okay, so that takes care of Together We Can. Next is assessments. Department, I went by it, I think. Department 580. Did I go by it? I don't see Department 580.
You were at 543s.
I know, and then it jumps up to 6.
I
No, the
believe
five-
I believe the assessments, Mark, come from Mary, maybe?
Mary,
Maybe,
anyone?
Mary? I don't want to put you on the spot, Mary.
Is this for the Blackstone Valley? No?
Oh, is that what that is?
I think it is. I'm not
Oh.
100% sure.
I think we already covered that, so we don't need to talk about that.
Okay.
We covered debt service with, Amy. And we talked about the finance committee, Evan taking our money from us.
Yep.
The 75,000, so thank you.
Absolutely.
So what I would like to do now, if it's okay with the committee, is to share the, oh, do we have more chats here? Oh, you were responding to him, I'm sorry. So what I would like to do right now is share with the committee the spreadsheet that Evan sent us. And Evan, tell me what tab you want and how you want to present this and walk us through it. And we
I
will,
would just, maybe just go to the change log tab. I think that's probably the good place to start.
make it a little bit bigger. Everybody see that okay? Evan, all yours.
Okay, so this is just a quick and dirty kind of accounting of trying to show you where the changes are without you having to go through the entire document. So as I mentioned, I changed the copier line from 28,800 to 30,600, and that's one copier lease for the Council on Aging. Municipal Center, I added $5,000. I'm big on the municipal building ground should look like a town that spends $70 million. So we should at least clean up some of the plantings and mulch and stuff. Mary Loria can attest to my the way I like things to look. So we're gonna do a little cleanup there. Kind of clean up some of our outside signage. We have like, I don't know, it seems like 100 different drop boxes out front. So that's really where that $5,000 is, on top of the other projects that we have in the works. Reserve fund, I obviously swept that $75,000 out of it. And that comes down to the fire department, which we'll talk about in a second. Council on Aging, there was a previous agreement with the former TA about that salary line. I made that adjustment. It winds up being about 2.5%, I think is what that is. Which I.
Oh, can I interrupt you on that?
Sure.
So there was an agreement, which I support you supporting the agreement, but is this also going to be part of the personnel study that you mentioned earlier?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yep. This was, I guess at the time they had looked at surrounding communities and felt that it was about 5% behind, made a deal to do 2.5% one year, 2.5% the next year. This is just me continuing that agreement, which, as we know, Council on Aging's in the age of pandemic is, I have no problem making that.
I support you. I support you on that change 100%.
So then the fire department, we obviously had the meeting with Chief Gothier. That continues to be an ongoing conversation as far as where we're going and when. But basically what I did was I adjusted the full-time chief line to meet the requirement if we're going to be hiring, as though we're hiring on July 1. That obviously, as I said, the conversation is fluid. So if that changes, I'll change that as well. The 5123 line, I added $5,000. That was part of the conversation we had with the fire chief about the fire prevention officer and not having any money in the budget to support that role if that person was on vacation or had to take any time off. And we want to make sure we have that. The $50,000 in software I removed with the assumption that I'd really rather wait for the full-time chief to get in there and have them determine what software they want to use. Part of that $50,000 was to switch to the fire module of IMC. Having gone with, to so many different fire functions with fire chiefs, I can tell you that generally speaking, they do not like IMC fires or the fire module IMC. So I really just feel more comfortable letting them make that choice. And then I bumped that, the maintenance line, you had all indicated that you really wanted it to be closer to $100,000 because you felt that that was something that was important to keep maintaining that line. So I did make that adjustment to 50, from 55 up to 100,000.
So you basically, to balance this budget with the minor changes that you made here and there, you essentially took the money that you had in the reserve fund
Yep.
and reallocated to the fire department.
For the most part, yeah. We
Which makes
actually
sense.
we saved $1,200.
Yep, no, that's perfect. So any questions? Go, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of questions. What if the fire chief comes and says, yes, I need $50,000 for the software? What happens then?
Tell me you gotta go talk to you guys.
No, the reason I'm asking is, should we keep that 50,000 there?
No, I'm cognizant of that, Gopal. I think that, I'd like to take it out for now and see where we get to, because I think we have other priorities that I want to make sure we address. The goal is that we would leave ourselves with some wiggle room that we could either make a transfer or an appropriation in the fall, should we have to try to support that mission. I'm not a big fan of budgeting now and seeing if it happens. I just think that that's how we wind up having these accounts that, you got $50,000 closer to the general fund, or to free cash for no apparent reason. And, I just think, I think that, if you get a chief in the fall, by the time they figure out what it is that they need, it's going to be spring, and we're right there as far as planning goes. So I just don't see it being that big of a need. We did just receive a grant for $21,000 for new computers for the fire department. So we're going to be moving forward with that. I might have overstated that. It might have been 17 for the fire department, but at any rate, new computers, Windows 10, the new softwares. We've got this thing called Bluebeam that is for blueprint reading for the fire prevention officer, stuff like that. And so I think they're going to be in pretty decent shape. And then it's just going to be a software conversation, which you're going to probably have to do an RFP. You're going to have, by the time we get there, I think we're into the next budget cycle anyways.
Okay. The second question I have is, I like the fact that you want to put some new mulch and flowers and all that. But my question is, how much life do we have out of that building? How bad is the situation of that building? Because it'll be nice to see the flowers and then you enter that building, which is depressing.
I'm of two minds. I think that spending a couple grand a year to make the place look nice when you get there goes a long way with the taxpayer, that we're actually taking care of their property. And two, I think that, I think the town at some point has to decide whether it wants to, keep putting money into that building to further its life. We have some ADA adjustments that we're doing. And if that's the case, then, we just need to budget a certain amount of money a year and update the,
how much do we spend to keep that thing going?
We'd have to go back and look at that municipal line. I don't know that top of mind.
Okay, that's fine.
But it's not crazy money, I can tell you. It's close to what I was budgeting in Munson with a brand new building. But again, my approach has always been, when the taxpayer pulls up to come in and pay their taxes, I don't want it to look like we've abandoned the property.
Yeah.
It just really annoys the heck out of me. And it's really, if you do it right, you can spend some really short money. And, I think it just gives that air that, we're not just, mindless worker bees that are in here and don't care, about your stuff.
I totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Angelina?
Is the fire department software a one-time cost, or is that going to be a recurring $50,000 cost?
It depends on what they choose, but I can't in 2021 think that there's going to be anything we buy that's static. It's almost all subscription at this point, and you're probably going to budget that going forward. I could see challenges in. Sorry, my wife's yelling at my children outside. Somebody fell in the driveway. It was very distracting. So,
sorry.
2 minutes ago, they were blaring Gummy Bear, which was also real hard to navigate your budget conversation. So I think that I just thought it was inherently problematic to be choosing software before that person has the opportunity to choose what they want. And especially given some of the choices that were being made, I know from past experience seem to be universally hated. So I think really just sit on that. And if we can leave, capacity in the budget that we don't have to appropriate, and if we have to make a change in the fall, we'll do that.
Irene?
I just wanted to comment back to the landscaping, just throw it out there. I know there had been some landscaping done at one time as part of an Eagle project.
Mhm.
So some of that beautification makes a great project for, scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, maybe even the 4-H. So that's all, just mention that. And I'm going back at least 10 years, but at one time that had been done.
We'll get some goats out there.
Yeah.
No problem. No, we do. I'm cognizant of that. And I think that anytime we can create a project that helps an Eagle Scout or Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and a lot of their public participation that they need to do, I think that stuff is important.
So Evan, we do have a couple of updated discussions that we want to have with you. You've already addressed the fire in your email. You haven't had a chance to talk to the library director yet, but she's coming into our meeting Wednesday night at 7. Hopefully you've had a chance to talk to her before then. And
Yes.
of course, the one issue that the finance committee raised last week was whether the number of new personnel that's going to be needed and what the plan is. So hopefully we can address that. The other issue was the Board of Health. I know we got a very detailed email from Nancy, is it? Please correct me
Yes.
if I'm wrong, Nancy.
Yes.
About the need for additional staff within that department. I guess my question to you, if you've had a chance to think about it, isn't there a way to have other staff members on a limited basis when she takes vacation, answer phones, take messages without the need of bringing in additional personnel?
Yeah. So what and Nancy and I haven't had any kind of in-depth conversation, but it appears to me that we need to do two things. We need to come up with a plan for backfilling, which is probably, like you said, answering phones and delaying things for a week. But there's also a consistent workload issue that I think we need to address and make sure that we need to separate out pandemic from general workload. So, we all know the Board of Health are very taxed right now. And I want to make sure that we do a good job of understanding the needs of the department post-COVID. And make sure we're setting ourselves up there. So if we need a 15-hour-a-week admin position to help keep up, then we need to do that. One thing I'm assessing in a lot of departments right now is that the amount of growth that Grafton is seeing currently, we're on the lighter side for staffing, and so one of the things that we need to be cognizant of is recognizing, is this a temporary bump or is this a long-term trajectory that we need to account for? And I think we need to do that in the smartest way possible. So long story short, I need to sit down with Nancy and figure that out. But yes, I think if we're talking about day-to-day activities and having somebody available to answer the phone, I think we can probably take care of that in-house already.
When we talked to Mary Oliver, I meant to ask her the question and I forgot. When Barry and Andy and I met with Mary Lauria, we talked about revenues and Mary walked us through the revenues and what she's done in terms of where we are and confirming Carter's numbers. The new growth number that's being carried, have you had the opportunity to talk to Mary Oliver about that? And are we still comfortable with the number that we're carrying there?
So I've talked to Mary Oliver via Mary Lauria, talking to Mary Oliver about that. Assessors always they lowball their new growth number,
Of course.
and town administrators always overestimate.
Higher, absolutely.
Right. So I generally like to leave Mary Lauria as a buffer so that I don't have to get into that much. But I feel that the new growth number is probably in a good spot. Mary, do
Okay.
you agree, disagree?
I agree. She felt, I think it's 624, she wanted 500,000. But if you do a look back, the last, 4 years, it was like 900,000, 800,000, and then it just, in the bond called, all of the housing that's going up, she'll meet it. I really have no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah, so we're
Okay,
we're at,
perfect.
yeah, what did she say on the bond call? 61 houses currently in construction.
Then you got 8
potential-
Pine Street coming
8.
on board soon, and yeah.
Right. I think we're in decent shape there.
All right, perfect. So then that leads to my question. In your memo to us, you said you see a shortfall of about 55,000 versus the number that's carried in the budget and what you are currently carrying for revenues, but you're confident you'll be able to make up that 55. But how does the assistant town accountant position factor into that 55?
I think that even with it, we're still gonna be able to close that 55 down. I think we'll be able to make that work.
That's awesome. So any other questions to Evan on the budget, on where things stand? I tell you, in a very short period of time, Evan, go ahead, Barry.
My understanding is Pine Street is supposed to fork over, I think, $60,000 in June.
Mhm.
By contractor supposed to pay us.
Is that an annual payment?
I haven't gotten that.
I haven't heard of that.
I haven't gotten that far in that project yet. I did, it's coming out of my cursory meetings on that this week, but financially didn't get to that part yet.
Okay.
And you give me
So-
another month and I'll have that, I think, probably committed to memory.
So we've now met with everybody but the schools going in, and I know that Jay, when Barry and I and Andy met with Jay, he talked about his budget and the 3.64% that was carried, that he's comfortable with that number, that it meets the needs of the school district next year, even though the projection call for 4.1%. And the main reason for that is they pre-bought some technology this year, and I'm sure we'll go over that with Jay. So I would say in a very short period of time, Evan, you've had the opportunity, and I'm glad you've come to all of our meetings to sit through with the departments. I think the confidence level in the numbers that you're carrying, 75, 80% now?
Yeah, I'd say we're probably at about 80%, if not higher. There's a few areas that it's just, it's a question of time, right? So, there is, and I don't want this to sound like it's wasteful of taxpayer money, but there's a line that has $3,000 in it, and there's some question as to whether or not that, we're over budgeting by 1,000. That's not the first place that we're going to work on this. And there's, you can see it when you look at the budget, all the institutional knowledge that's in there that hasn't been updated, that the typos, we're not touching that right now. We're really trying to get to brass tacks, get your money where it needs to be, and then push this forward. So I'm real confident. If we had to go to town meeting tomorrow, we would be fine. I wouldn't be happy, but we would be fine. Nothing catastrophic is going to happen. So it's just a matter of refining this down to a better place, and then really working hard to make this a better process for next year.
And the amount of the override that's being used is the 871 that when we met, we had a joint meeting. I think you were there as
I think I was there too.
observer. Yeah.
Yes.
So we bumped up the 575 number that Carter had originally had, and we said, let's use a little bit more of that to fund the schools. One of the things, Evan, that I asked Jay sent me an email and asked what I would like to see from the finance committee for his presentation on Wednesday. I asked him to give me a 5-year projection on how much the impact of the override is and what they need moving forward. And I believe after this year, there's going to be about 1.5 million or 1.6 million left in the override. And the purpose of the override was to fund the schools. So I'm going to be very interested to see what his projection is moving forward on how long he can stretch out that override. And then who knows, maybe we'll have some marijuana money. Sorry, Gopal. Oh, geez, why did I say marijuana? Look at Gopal, your hand went right up as soon as the word marijuana came out. Hopefully we'll have some marijuana money to offset some of the added costs that we're gonna be seeing. Go, Paul, go ahead.
You're muted.
Muted, go,
I
Paul.
couldn't have timed it.
I know.
I'm getting a reputation in this committee. Evan, one of the things that I always think about is we have overrides and primarily driven by school. I all support more money for the school. One of the things I would love to understand from Dr. J. Cummings is, in spite of all this money going to the school, per pupil spending is one of the lowest in the state. So I am still struggling to understand that. I don't know if when he comes to present the budget is when he can talk about it or not.
He'll address that, go, Paul.
Okay,
He will
thanks.
absolutely address that. All right, so Evan, I guess the final question that I have for you, and then of course, anybody from the FinCom, please jump on. The confidence level is 80%. You're feeling good about going into town meeting. When do you think you will get to us what is your time frame of giving us the final, hey, guys, this is what the budget article is going to be for town meeting? You need probably another month or so, I would imagine.
I was gonna say 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Mary, where's your level of comfort with me saying 2 weeks? I've learned to read Mary's facial expression through Zoom where she's like, I'm gonna kill that guy. I'm gonna kill him.
If you give me a date, I can have it complete by then.
Well, then that leads into the next thing that we have on our agenda, which is our schedule moving forward for public hearings on the warrant to review the warrant. And I know there was an issue with the date of the original town meeting and when we had to hold our public hearings versus now that the town meeting has been pushed back, does that affect our timing? So I guess, Mary, to answer your question, we don't need to see a budget until we need to make a recommendation on the budget based on the warrant and based on when we do our public hearing. So Sue Fiacco, what do we need to understand from Evan in terms of timing for this committee to schedule our meetings? We have one more budget hearing, and that's Wednesday night with the library and the schools, and then we're done for a while until we have to jump into the warrant. So Sue, do you have a time frame in mind?
Yes, if I can put it on the screen, do you mind?
Please.
Okay, so what I did is the original on the left-hand side with the basis of the May 10th town meeting. And I thought the premise is that even though we would move the select board would move the town meeting, we would keep to the regular schedule. Evan, if I understood you correctly, that we could give us all some more time and move to the right hand of this document here that would push us to a more of a May public hearing versus an April public hearing. It's really literally a whole month.
Yeah,
Is that what I understood?
Yeah. In talking, and this was my understanding, but I had reached out to town council just to verify. But when the select board moves that date, then all your timeline is based on that date. It does not have to follow the original timeline. So, in my opinion, there's no real reason to rush the process when our timeline has entirely shifted. We don't have to.
Exactly. The information will not be accurate for the June 5th meeting.
Right.
So, so I left them both up because this is how the original versus. So, just I'll take a look at that.
So based on that, after Wednesday, we really don't need to get back together until May 19th. To
May
start
11th.
reviewing. Well, May 11th is when they sign the warrant. When are we going to meet with, when would we have
Oh,
our
I'm
first
sorry,
meeting?
correct.
May 19th. Okay, I did read that right. So
Thank
then May 19th is when we would have Evan come in and present the warrant to us to go over the articles that he can cover with us. And I would say that's when we would probably want to see the final budget. Am I wrong on that?
I wouldn't push that time frame into May 19th. Mark, my suggestion is that it does take some time to review it. So instead of taking public hearing time, I would suggest to push it back anywhere from April to May 19th.
Oh, so we should schedule a meeting sometime in April, late
Mhm.
April, first week of May, to meet with Mary and Evan to get the final budget from them.
Correct.
Then I guess, Mary, good news. We won't need a number for you for 30 days. So Evan, don't
Okay.
force Mary to do 2 weeks.
All right.
This
All right,
is good.
so good news. So we can, and Evan, if that changes and we need to go back to the original schedule, which I don't think we would,
Nope.
we'll plan on a meeting after Wednesday night. We'll plan on our next meeting, either the last week of April or the first week of May, to deal with the budget, and then we'll get
Okay.
into our public hearing schedule after, May 19, 20, so on and so forth.
Perfect.
Does that make sense to everybody? Does that make sense to the FinCom?
Yes.
All right. All right, great. Perfect.
Excuse me, Mark, what about is there going to be a financial policy discussion prior to town meeting?
Well, Peter Carlson sent me, Evan, and Mary an email saying that we want to schedule a meeting with the select board. But I was going to wait to hear back from Evan when he was ready to give us his final policy. So, if we could do that at the time we do the budget would make the most sense. I would just do it at the same meeting. Does that make sense to you, Evan?
Yeah.
Okay.
It does.
All right. Okay, you could stop sharing the screen, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. All right, so we talked about that. We talked about the warrant. The next issue on the agenda is to discuss schedule to review term membership renewal of the Finance Committee members. So Dan Kusher and I have been texting this past week. Dan asked where we stood with the charter amendment that changes the way Finance Committee members are appointed. So I reached out to Representative Meridian, who got back to me pretty quick, Dan, didn't he? I mean, within seconds, he responded to my text message, and it's in process. And I told him that it would be great if this could somehow get through the legislature in time for the reappointments of the Finance Committee members in June. And he said he would do his best to get that done. So I know that we have reappointments this year. Who's up? The 3 positions that are up, Irene, Dan, and Angelina would be up for reappointment, correct?
Correct.
So hopefully the 3 of you want to continue. Hopefully we just have our new process, which would be the town clerk, the moderator, and a member of this board. This committee would serve as the reappointment process, and hopefully we just reappoint the members unless somebody decides not to want to be reappointed, then we go through a whole process like we just did. Andy, no, you can't resign. I know you brought that up last week, but we said no. What do you got? Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was just curious if during the reappointment process, we had to appear publicly before Barry to answer his line of questioning. I don't know if I need to start preparing now or like what's the time frame on that?
Yeah, I think we'll have to come up with that. We'll have to figure that out. That's a very good point. I still don't know what UGA stands for, but that's a whole nother debate. Go, Paul.
It's very easy. We just need to figure out how to mute Barry.
Oh.
And then answer the question in any way we want.
That's awful, Go, Paul. That's awful.
Sorry, Barry. I didn't mean to. I'm not. It was a joke.
Sue Fiacco?
Well, I don't think we're going to have our town moderator.
Yes, you will.
Prior
The election,
to-
the election's in May. The
Does
election
that-
date didn't change, did it, Evan?
I think currently there's discussion around that date changing.
Okay. Well,
So-
Sue, you raise a good point. If the election takes place prior to reappointment time, then the Finance Committee would do the reappointments. So we would
Okay.
have to think about when we would notify the vacant moderator, and then 30 days after, we would make the appointment, similar to how we just appointed Angelina.
Yes,
So-
usually the appointments are announced at town meeting. I don't know if that's going to stay that way, but
All right, so
that,
what we should do then, I'm glad you did that. So on May 5th, and I'll ask Greg Mott to check my math. On May 5th, we should send a letter to the moderator, notifying him of the FinCom reappointments, him or her rather, of the, well, the vacancy of the FinCom reappointments, and then we can make those appointments on June 5th. Does that make sense? Unless the charter has been passed by that date. And if it's not, on May 5th, we will notify the moderator of, we would like to have these appointments made. And then obviously, if there's no moderator, on June 5th, we would make the appointments. Does that make sense to everybody? And did I get my math right? Is it 30 days from May 5th to June 5th? Because we know I screwed up the last time. Yes.
Greg says you're good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it. All right, so that's what we'll do, Sue. You and I'll talk about that.
Okay.
And then in
And
the meantime, one before you go, Sue, the other thing, Evan, that we need to talk to you about is eventually we're going to go back to meeting in person. So we have to start thinking about Sue and what we're going to do with that. So I'll reach out to you, Evan, once we figure out where we're at, and then we have to do a little search, and hopefully you'll let the
I
finance
thought
committee
we would
participate.
just go back to in person, but have Sue remain on Zoom.
Oh, we could do that too.
There you go.
great idea, Evan. Thank you. That's
And
interesting.
absolutely.
Sue, go
Interesting
ahead. What do you got?
concept. I was wondering if you would like to review the finance committee budget.
Oh, yes, you made some changes to it, but you actually reduced it.
I did.
All right, so yeah, why don't you put that up so Evan can see what we did, and then he can make the adjustments,
Thank
if you
you.
don't mind.
Hope that we
Thank
can-
you, Sue. I forgot about that.
We also have a bill to take care of as well.
Yep, I saw that.
Okay. Okay. So basically, I just stuck to the expense line. Evan was kind enough to approve that we can use the copy machine in-house again and kind of get back to that, which I shouldn't say back to that because we actually never did that. So we had such a huge budget in 5,400 that was dedicated to the Grafton News making the copying and the printing for us, which is not showing here. It was $6,000. It was absolutely crazy. My point is that with an in-house, we'll just leave it to legal publications. So I reduced that down to 1,800, and that has a little bit of wiggle room in there in case we have a special town meeting. And then office supplies was bumped up to take care of the new conversion software, which is an annual. And I did put in, that's ironic, Evan. I did put in for the web account, $540 a year, which is $45 a month. I don't think it would be that pricey because we do share the account, but that was a just in case. And then down at the equipment outlay, due to the CARES Act, we had $1,200 in here for FY22, which was taken out because the new laptop has been received.
So our budget request is gonna go from 16,043 to 15,528.
Yes.
Okay, Andy, you had a question, and then I'd entertain a motion to vote to accept the new numbers. Go ahead, Andy.
Susan crept it right back up for me too. We have a meals line. Are we supposed to be getting breakfast?
We're
you
supposed
know,
to be
we-
getting lunch.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Evan, that's not Evan, Andy, that's a good question. We used to have the Saturday meetings that would go, Sue would always bring in food for us, but you're on your own when you're on Zoom. So next year we'll do it. All right, so therefore, Sue, scroll down a second.
Certainly. Sorry.
So I'd entertain a motion from the Finance Committee to recommend to the Town Administrator that the Finance Committee budget for fiscal year 22 rather, be $15,528. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, Sue, can you stop sharing your screen so I can see everybody?
Certainly.
So any further, oh, Sue Robbins, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, Mark, when you and Evan sit down to discuss Sue's position, when we're looking for a new assistant, would you please look at the classification plans? It's going to be kind of difficult finding a salary range because she's in a very unique position and has been ever since she's worked for the Finance Committee. because the other assistants are usually from the town. So it's going to be a little difficult, but I think we could find something that's very comparable to what she's been doing. And if you would look at that as well, that would be very helpful to us.
Will do. Will do. All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Barry,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Gopal,
Aye.
Irene,
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Andy.
Aye.
Mark, aye. That's unanimous. And then the last thing on the agenda is we have a bill to Gatehouse New England. How much is that for, Sue?
$246.
I would entertain a motion to approve that bill and authorize Sue to sign it for submission.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Oh, it's really 246, you guys. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. 246 is the amount that Barry just made in his motion and
Second.
authorize you to sign it. Did I hear a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion? All those in favor by roll call, Barry,
Aye.
Sue,
Aye.
Angelina,
Aye.
Heather,
Aye.
Gopal,
Aye.
Irene,
Aye.
Dan.
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Mark, aye, unanimous. Is there anything else before the Finance Committee today? I want to thank Mary, William, Evan. Can't thank you enough. Great information. This is the most informed that I've been as a member of the Finance Committee in 4 years. So thank you very, 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 very much. Sue, you had the last point?
Yes, I want to remind everyone that we're starting at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, and library is first on the agenda at 7 p.m., followed by school at 7:30.
Perfect. Perfect. And did we tell Beth what we wanted to cover with her?
No, it was basically a further discussion. I did not go into any detail.
Evan, if you're talking to her before Wednesday, if you could let her know that we just want to know manpower is the only thing, because I think she covered everything else in the budget. So, workforce is what at least I'm interested in. Is there anything else that the Finance Committee is curious about with regards to that? So Evan, if
I
you could
think
do that for us, I'd appreciate it.
I'm in favor of giving her a heads up just so that she doesn't.
Yeah,
know.
I want to. I
no,
want to make sure she's prepared.
I'll make sure that happens.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very,
Thank
very
you,
much,
Evan.
Evan. Appreciate it. All right, being no further business before the Finance Committee, I will declare us adjourned, and I thank all of you for your time. Great 3 weeks of meetings, everybody, and I'll see you all Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Take care.